This episode of Off My Shelf contains coarse language and adult conversation. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, my name is Tracy James and welcome to Off My Shelf, a podcast about movies that are, well, off my shelf, where we go through my DVDs and talk about the movies in my collection. In this episode, Julian Spillane is here to talk about one of the best trilogies ever made, Back to the Future. Welcome!
It's my Back to the Future sound.
Back to the Future sound? I like it. I mean, we can just throw in some sound effects and the, I don't know, how do you make like a whoosh sound, I guess?
I guess you just kind of go whoosh.
Yeah.
Magic of radio, it just fills in.
It just fills in, exactly.
Hi, I'm Julian.
Well, one of the things I find interesting about it is that, like, you're a game maker and, like, video games and stuff, and while watching this, I don't know why I've never really picked up on this idea before, is that I find Back to the Future very game-like, you know, like a pseudo choose-your-own-adventure sort of, like,
yeah, it feels a lot like a Sierra-style point-and-click adventure game where, like, you know, Marty needs to, Doc needs to get the plutonium so that he can power up the DeLorean.
Yes.
Once he's back in the past, he's got to then make it to the clock tower in time while still making sure that his parents meet up. And, like, it is very situational and almost, like, item-based.
Yes.
Marty almost has an inventory to him,
Mm-hmm.
constantly checking the photograph, constantly checking the newspapers, constantly checking the clippings to see if the future has changed.
And especially in the second and third movie, he's constantly making sure he has his hoverboard.
Yes.
Like, there are so many times he's like, you got your hoverboard? It's right here. And it's back and forth all the time. I'm like, this hoverboard's really important.
The hoverboard is the true hero of the Back to the Future trilogy.
By the end of it, you're just like, I know who wins here. It's the hoverboard. Not society, not our timelines or anything.
No.
The hoverboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, where is my fucking hoverboard?
Zemeckis promised it to us in 2015. He said we'd have one.
Why is I
4 years late. We have self-lacing shoes, but they apparently brick when you firmware update them.
Oh, yes, I heard about this. Because I was like, wait, how do you brick shoes? I'm like, do they turn into bricks and you can't walk? No, it turns out you can't tie your shoelaces.
You can't use your Android app to tie your shoelaces for you.
No.
This is the darkest timeline.
It is very much the darkest timeline. I think it's really sad when that kind of thing happens. I'm like, you can't tie your own shoelaces? But I mean, like a few years ago, there was a big deal about a electronic popsicle swirler.
What?
And you're just like, yeah, you put like either a lollipop or a popsicle into this thing, and because most people when you're eating it, they like turn it, right?
Yeah.
No, this thing turns it for you.
But that's not a hard gesture.
I didn't say it was.
That's
All
like,
I'm saying is that it exists.
Do you remember the Juicero, that like Silicon Valley juicer, was like Keurig coffee for juice?
Yeah.
But it turns out that the juice packets they sold you could just squeeze by hand into a glass and save yourself hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
The company went bankrupt.
I mean, like, that is... but do they still make those juice packets?
They should, but they don't.
Oh. Well, I mean, if the machine doesn't work, fine, but you can still sell self-juicing juice packets.
I think the margins are pretty low. I think the Silicon Valley investors who got real excited about the Juicero probably look at the margins on juice packets and go, nope.
Not a good thing, yeah. I mean, it's probably just cheaper to, buy an orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than likely.
That's the thing. But at least, blenders took off. Blenders are a huge thing now to blend things together.
And like juicers, like a thing that, you take an apple and put it in, you get juice out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty useful.
But isn't it like, I think that the benefit of a blender over a juicer is the thing that makes juice quote unquote healthy, like from a fruit, is the fiber content. Mm-hmm. And if you're juicing it, you're taking out the fiber content and just having all the sugar,
just
right?
Throwing it in the blender is way better in general.
Yeah, you have all this stuff.
I wouldn't know. I don't know too much about juice, but...
Apparently I know more about juice than I ever thought I could. So, there you go. Anyways, let's go back to the future and talk about this trilogy that is, I still think it's one of the best trilogies ever made.
Agreed.
I don't think they're perfect on every level, but they're pretty close.
I think the first film is special because of what it was when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
But I just watched them all back to back again just to get myself prepared for this, and it's compared to 2, it's a fairly unremarkable film because I think in my opinion 2, while relying on it to exist, does so much so much more interesting stuff with time travel. Marty going back to visit Marty who went back. The like interactions of all the characters and like the ramifications and the implications of being in a time loop is far more interesting than I think the premise of the first film, which is really just, at the end of the day, like a rom-com adventure with time travel.
Yeah, but I mean...
Not to be reductive about it, because it is incredibly important, but I think, like, 2 does so much more with it, but it couldn't do it without 1. So it's one of those, like, it's a bit of a paradox there into itself.
But I think one of the reasons why it is still held at such esteem is because it really... Like, it wasn't the first movie to deal with time travel, but it was the first movie to deal with time travel in this way.
Yes.
You know? And without it, there would be, like, whole genres of film that wouldn't exist.
Agreed. And storytelling in general. Like, you can tell that so much of the television we watch, so much of the games we play, so much of the fiction we read is inspired by how they handle time travel in Back to the Future. Yeah, I keep thinking about what would the series be like if we ended up with that Eric Stoltz Back to the Future
version of it, yeah.
Because like how much is Michael J. Fox? How much of the series' success can you attribute to Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd just stealing the show from each other constantly? Like they're so good.
They're so good, and then that's the thing.
Is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think a lot of movies fail from a lack of chemistry between characters and things like that. And I'm not saying that Nick Stoltz and like Christopher Nolan didn't have chemistry because I didn't see that version of the movie. I don't know, but it definitely would have been different. You know, I think the thing is with Nick Stoltz, even though he would do the humor justice.
Yeah.
He would just lack a certain level of, I'm going to say goofiness, that would be just missed.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. How about that mysterious Elizabeth Shue replacement in Back to the Future 2? That's always like... Crispin Glover, I get. Like, I understand that he was probably too expensive, or...
No, apparently he was just being a dick.
Was he being a dick and no one liked him?
Everybody, like, apparently, when they signed up to do 2, because, like, they'd never expected to do 2.
Yeah.
And one of the things I found out about this first movie, like, that end sequence was a joke. They're like, what if we did this at the end? And there was never actually meant to be a sequel. But they used that as a jumping point when they had the money to do the sequel, which I thought was awesome. So all of the rest of the cast, like, was like, yeah, we're down, we're gonna do it. Everybody got pay raises, not anything ridiculous. They all got pay raises, it's fine. And apparently what it was is Crispin Glover was just like, no, I want all of this ridiculous stuff and you have to give me a ridiculous amount of money when you come back. And they're just like, well, I guess you'll just be dead. Yeah. We're good. Thank you.
And in fact, it makes it a better story.
I think so, yeah. Then
Marty going back in time to save his dad from being murdered by Biff Tannen.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, okay, Crispin Glover I get, but like, what did Claudia Wells do? Like, you know, she got shooed. Like, so many people in the 80s just got replaced by Elizabeth Shue. And I don't know what it is.
I mean, Elizabeth Shue is great. She's great. But what has she done? I mean, come on. Like, what are you doing to these poor people?
Yeah, like just I mean, it's, you know, you gotta have done something crazy to be shooed.
Yes.
I think that's...
so at the end of the DVDs, when I was watching them, they have little featurettes per movie. And for that first one, they did not mention, like, her being replaced in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know what happened to her.
It might just be a contract dispute. I mean, 9 times out of 10, that's what these things are. Like, somebody they can't come to an agreement, and they decide that they're gonna... Maybe she was on the up and up and thought that, like, maybe she pulled a Shelley Long, like, thought she was gonna... Her star was rising so fast and made demands that just, you know, inevitably called that rise.
Like, I'm gonna be big star anyway, so I'm going, and then nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man. Side note, we've been rewatching Cheers at home because Lisa's never seen Cheers. We started with Frasier and worked backwards. And just the entire cast's, like, if you watch the featurettes on the DVDs where they're talking about what it's like to work with each other and stuff, just hearing Ted Danson talk about Shelley Long, like, I think there's a lot more Diane and Shelley than she would care to admit, is like the most backhanded, like
smack across the face. Oh my god, that's amazing.
Sorry to derail it. No, that's Shelley Long syndrome is a crazy concept. Like the idea of just assuming your star is rising way faster than it is, and not listening to anyone who's asking you to be cautious about it. And that's like I
know of a lot of people after Shirley Long, but there must have been people in like the silver screen age and stuff that would have done something ridiculous like that. No,
I'm sure. I guarantee you there probably were tons of them. I mean, like even going back to the Hitchcock days, I'm sure there were people who blew up from his films and then didn't, or I don't know.
Yeah,
but I'm not an expert. I really my film knowledge kind of begins at 1960 some odd.
Yeah,
and goes from there. 50s and 40s movies are alien to me.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too about one of the things, like sequels and stuff weren't really a huge thing until maybe the 70s.
Yeah,
you know, like they were very few, very far in between, or non-existent most of the time. But in like the early days of cinema, there wasn't a sequel to stuff. Like you made a movie and you got on with your life. You did something else. I
think the Universal monster films were probably the first ones to do a lot of serialized sequels, like Bride of and like Curse of and that kind of stuff. And the James Bond. I think James Bond was this innovative concept of we're just going to keep revisiting this character in new adventures at such a large scale. But you're right, like,
but it wasn't like, but James Bond, it wasn't like a studio was like, let's just keep making more movies. It was, there's a series of books and there's a character, and we're just gonna. Each movie was really just like, it wasn't like it had the same character, but it wasn't considered a sequel. It was just another movie, you know. Yeah, but I understand.
I mean, if Gone with the Wind had been released in 2017, in 2019 we'd now be getting Gone with the Wind again.
Yeah,
right?
or Blown Away Westward or something. I don't know. You know, something.
Casablanca 2, Electric Boogaloo. So I just watched the Canon Films Golden Globus documentary, Electric Boogaloo. It's phenomenal. It's about like Canon Films' ridiculous like rise to power with shitty movies and just like being as low budget as possible and as widespread as possible. It's phenomenal. It's worth watching. I'm gonna put my hand up. Yep.
What's Canon Films?
So Canon Films is a notorious film production company started in the 70s, or started in the 60s in Israel, and then moved into American film around the 70s. Okay. But they're responsible for like some gems and some bombs. Things like Cobra with Sylvester Stallone. That's a Canon film. Okay. American Ninja, the American Ninja series, that's also Canon Film. Jesus, okay. And they were just known for like their scattershot approach to throwing money at things and just seeing what sticks. Yeah. And like it kind of worked for them. They started getting successes and hits, and then bombs, then hits, and it was always it was like Orion films too. You're always scratching your head, going, okay, on the one hand, you just did the Terminator, but on the other hand, you're doing like a schlocky Porky's like third threequel, you know? Like, what's your strategy? And the answer was there was no strategy. It was all just cocaine everywhere. Yeah, and we're just gonna make whatever comes on our desk. Done. We're just gonna do it. Yeah. So speaking of the 1950s, to bring it back to the Future. Interesting thing to think about, and I've actually been thinking about this a lot since I listened to some interviews with some of the older Simpsons writing crews. Okay. And they were talking about how in the, you see jokes about the 50s a lot, and jokes about the early 60s in a lot of media from the late 80s and early 90s. And the reason postulated by these people, and it kind of makes sense, is that, well, a lot of these writers who are writing for these shows were born in the late 40s. Their halcyon heyday years were the 50s and early 60s. And so when it comes time to write something in the 80s, you're throwing back to your nostalgia, even if it's not your target demographics. Yes. And that's one of the things I find fascinating about Back to the Future, is it was a movie made in the 1980s for children in the 1980s. Those children have no idea about what malt shops are, about, like 50s culture in terms of the way they do dances, the way the music they listen to, the organization and setup of things. But they just made the conscious decision, like, we're going to write this in such a way that even if you have no fucking clue what's going on in this time period, you'll have fun, but we'll get to throw in all the little references that harken back to our childhoods. And I think that's probably why it comes off as so magical. Yeah. Because they're literally drawing upon the nostalgia that fueled them, that made them the happiest, and injecting that into the movie. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Like, I mean, just like you watch the movie and like how completely
clueless Marty is, for example, when he gets back to the 50s. He's like, I don't understand anything that's going on, even though everything is...
How about that Pepsi Free reference?
Yeah.
That is the most dated reference.
Well, I mean, pretty much everything about him is excessively dated
Yeah.
now. I mean, even when they go to the future, it's excessively dated now. And that was only technically 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But yeah, Pepsi Free. I mean, who? What? What?
This predates Crystal Pepsi by only a few years. Like,
oh god, yeah, Crystal Pepsi.
I think Pepsi Free is what they called. I might be wrong on this. Is what Diet Pepsi was before Diet Pepsi was Diet Pepsi.
I think so. Yes.
And yeah, just the idea of him rolling into a 50s diner asking for a Pepsi Free and being told you got to pay for it, bud.
Yeah.
Is just great writing. And I think this nostalgia and this love of that decade is kind of why I think 3 in its Western setting falls flat a little bit.
It does.
Because you can't possibly have nostalgia for the Wild West because no one was alive who was writing or being involved in this, right? So it's more like a love for Western films.
I mean, and they make reference to that within the film, like right at the beginning, right?
Exactly.
That it was like a love of Western films, and like Marty loves Clint Eastwood, for example, so they all make Clint Eastwood references.
Yeah.
Or like they go to where the drive-in is. There you go, drive-in. That's the word I'm looking for. It's not something I have to say on a regular basis anymore. The drive-in, and it's like it's painted like a Wild West scene, you know. But what I think is hilarious, though, is the fact that they still managed to decide, despite Marty's love of Westerns and seeing Western films, they still decide to dress him in red pants and a pink shirt with lots of like, fringe on it. What? Everybody knows it's brown head to toe. That's it. That's
but I mean, it was Doc's idea, and you know, you don't question the Doc.
Also, how old is the Doc? I swear he's like the 1985 version. He's like 80 years old.
Well, it's so weird because they aged up Christopher Lloyd for that role. So they put like age makeup on him because he was only like 50 in Back to the Future.
Okay.
Because he's 70 now. So no, he must have been in his 40s, in his 70s now.
Yeah.
Lloyd. So they aged him up for some reason to make him look like a mad scientist. But then you're like, okay, maybe he's 60. Mm-hmm. Let's be generous. Maybe he's just had a hard life. He's 60. Yeah. He's still having 2 kids. By the time you see him at the end of Back to the Future 3, where he's showing up with Clara and Jules and Vern, well, those kids have to be like 10 and 8 based on their height and size. So he's at least in his 70s now. Yep. Like that is a virile old man.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, even when he goes back in time to 1955, he looks like he's 40.
Yeah.
So in 1985,
yeah, he's got to be like 70. And
and he's all like he's like in that third movie too. He's like running up a train, jumping on things, you know, horseback riding, saving chicks. Like what?
Yeah.
It's he'd just fall down and break his hip. Like it's weird.
Maybe he's giving himself a super serum. Like you know, he invents time travel. He might have gone into the future and got some kind of anti-aging serum.
But remember, he did that rejuvenation process in the future, and he peeled that skin thing.
Maybe that did it for him.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, when he peeled that stuff off his face, he looked the same.
Like, you know, supposed to suspension of disbelief.
Yes. Because he was like, I thought you wouldn't recognize me, so I had to put this mask on because he did a rejuvenating treatment. So maybe that's what it was, that rejuvenating treatment.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to live in, the 1800s. Like, no, then it means... Wait, wouldn't that mean if he went back in time and stayed with Clara, and if he had a rejuvenating treatment, wouldn't he still be alive?
Well, and
when
this
born?
And this brings us to the time paradox. So they warn against time paradoxes in Back to the Future 2. Mm-hmm. Bring about the end of the universe and all that. Yeah. Yet they have no qualms introducing the biggest time paradox of them all. If Doc Brown travels back in time to the 1800s and starts his own life, but can now freely travel, he abandons his idea of burning the time machine and never using it again. Yeah. Now he's freely traveling throughout time. At some point, something he's done or interfered with is going to mess with his original self.
Well, of course.
It has to, right? Like, and you're right, his existence will overlap with his own birth.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, even though in the third one they try to do an explanation of Doc Brown's history, which is 3 seconds long, and I kind of should have wrote it down, but I didn't. I swear he's like his own great grandfather or something.
Well, maybe Jules and Vern, one of them is actually Doc Brown. Maybe Emmett is middle name.
No. Oh god, yeah. No, see, then it just gets weird. It just gets weird at that point.
Yeah, because then you go up and you go back and you fuck your grandmother and...
Yeah, and then it starts all over again.
Yeah.
But then maybe that's what it is. It's just a big time loop, and if he doesn't do this, he doesn't exist.
Back to the Future is just one big incest time loop.
Yeah, Doc Brown had sex with his great-grandmother, even though he said not for Marty not to do that to his own mother in the past. Yeah. So
hey, you know what? Doc Brown is totally a do as I say, not as I do kind of guy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh my god.
So something stuck out with me watching it this time again through the first film, and when he mentions John F. Kennedy and that farmer guy's like, "Who the hell is John F. Kennedy?" And it's like, okay, but let's take a step back. John F. Kennedy was a congressman in the 1950s. He was a well-known...
He was a well-known person
and like the Kennedy family was still like they were big in business in Chicago. Not Chicago, they would have been in Boston, sorry. But big in business. Like they were a known thing. So that line always stuck out to me. I know it's just pure pedantry, but
yeah,
that's the whole point of
the
a
whole
podcast
point
discussing movies.
Yeah, I mean the whole point of things like that is them being like, that doesn't make any sense because that wouldn't have happened yet. So how would we know about it? Even though technically they would have some sort of idea who these people are, you know? One of my favorite ones is the, I mean, it's legit and it kind of harkens back to now where when he goes back in time and he meets Doc Brown doesn't believe he's from the future and he's like, who's president? He's like, Ronald Reagan. The actor? You know? And then he like goes on about all the, like a bunch of stupid things. But one thing I hadn't realized before was the scene a little bit earlier on was when Marty first goes into town and he passes the theater, like the movie theater, and they're showing a Ronald Reagan movie.
Oh, that's
right?
Cool.
And I had never...
Was it the one where he acts with a chimp?
No.
That is my favorite trivia. For a while, I thought that was the most embarrassing thing you could say about the President of the United States. But
no, not anymore. Yeah. The movie was Cattle Queen of Montana, starring Ronald Reagan and Barbara Stanwyck.
Oh, that sounds like a real barn burner.
It's a real movie. I looked it up. It does exist. It wasn't some nonsense they put out there.
It sounds like schlock.
Yes, it's gonna be schlock. But yeah, I was just like, oh, that's what they were doing. I get it. You know,
the 80s cafe is funny because they weren't far off from 80s nostalgia being like 80s nostalgia really hit hard in like 2016, 2017. Mm-hmm. They were only a year off from people obsessing over 80s things and listening to synthwave again and sequelitis to 80s films. I thought when I first saw it, are we really going to be looking back to the 80s with revelry and nostalgia in 2015? Yeah. Yeah, we are.
But that's the thing, like I find with media and society in general, there's a bit of a obsession with looking back.
Well,
right?
It goes back to the 30-year thing. It's now that you're adults and you're out of your 20s, you wax poetically about the things you grew up with because you want to introduce those to your kids to those. You want to, that kind of thing. You want to introduce the new generation to the thing that you liked.
Yeah, and I guess that's why they picked the 80s and the 2015. But like, I understand the nostalgia. My problem is how they presented the nostalgia.
Oh yeah,
it was so excessively ridiculous. And one of the things that really bothers me about it is the fact that how can you forget such basic things? Like, media exists already. You have pieces of paper and videos and all that kind of stuff written down, okay? You're not going to forget how a video game works between now and then.
No.
You're going to know that, no, working out on, like, a stationary bike in a restaurant is not a thing, okay? Stuff like, I'm like, no, this is not what the 80s, no, that's not
holograms that attack people from rooftops.
Yeah, like,
Jaws 16?
17, I think it was.
17.
Yeah.
Jesus. That was presumptuous.
That was a lot, too. They were kind of close with the Cubs thing, though. They were only a year off.
A year off.
Yeah. So, psychic. Tell you that.
Somebody has an almanac.
Yeah, somewhere. So we're just like, oh, we'll throw them off. Like, we don't really know, but let's see. Well, in the first movie, like let's just go through the movies. I find,
Yeah.
I don't know. I do find a lot of the kitschy things in the first movie thoroughly endearing, and how they use like random, tropes all over the place to just like throw people off, or really get nerd boys like angry, like especially the whole Darth Vader thing. Who's from Vulcan,
from the planet Vulcan. It's so funny.
I laughed so hard at that.
And just hearing Crispin Glover be like, "And Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan visited, and he told me that he like." What a fucking nerd. The entire time, Lisa and I are watching, Lisa's like, he's so weird.
He is
like his portrayal of Mr. McFly is just so bizarre. Even when he's an adult, like just the things he says, like they wrote him to be the weirdest dweeb.
Yeah, they really did. And even in the present, the 1985, let's make it easy, where he comes back and he's like, he's not the dweeb.
Yeah.
He's still really weird.
Yes.
Yeah,
like he's still very strange. His mannerisms are very bizarre.
Yeah. It's not that I hadn't picked up on that before. It was just more apparent this time when I watched it. I was just like, what is happening? What are you doing with your hair? Why are you so greasy and sweaty?
He's always sweaty. Why is he always sweaty?
I'm like, can you stand up straight? Like, he's got like a hunchback. And, especially the scene where he goes in and he's going to Leah Thompson. And he like does this, like, he's got like the notebook in one hand. And like one arm is like way out here for some reason, and he's like strangely walked like he's part of like a Shakespearean play. I'm like, what are you doing? Why do you think this is how you're gonna find that special someone? Exactly.
Yeah, it's so strange. So one thing that makes me wonder, right? So original 1985, Lorraine and George are married.
Yes. Marty
goes back in time. Beats up Biff, teaches his dad, or gets his dad to beat up Biff, teaches him confidence, blah, blah, blah. Comes back, George and Lorraine are still married, but they're cool now.
Yes.
So, how did George and Lorraine hook up the first time without Marty's intervention?
Well, the whole point is that she wouldn't have been in the car with Marty at the time.
Right, but I mean, like, Biff, like how did she end up with George in the first place? Like, what's the OG story of Lorraine?
Well, because remember when like he was hit by her father.
Oh, because George got hit by the car, right?
And that's how. And so the same thing happened to Marty, and that's why she was kind of obsessed with him at first.
Lorraine was pretty damn thirsty in that movie.
Oh my god, excessively. You're just like, you need to calm down. Stop taking weird people's pants off, putting them in your bed, and making comments about it.
And making comments about your underwear. She's looked close enough to see that CK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, Calvin Klein. Also, wait, one thing I never understood about this movie. I was never a person who had names sewn into my underwear.
No.
Okay. But the thing is, you look at a lot of movies and stuff like that, especially when you have like people who are nerds and stuff in it, they always have their names sewn into their underwear. Why is that a thing?
Is that like, I wonder if partially it's a trope going back to like the 30s or 40s, or if there's like some kind of like hobo trope that has to do with your name being written on your underwear. Like, is it a military thing? Like,
yeah, because that's what I was thinking of too. Like, it's kind of like dog tags. If they find your body, like, how are they going to identify you?
Yeah, maybe it's like maybe it's a military thing or something like that. But yeah, I never understood it. I always thought it a thing of the movies or of TV. Like, it's like a gag, like Grandpa Simpson having his name written on his underwear and being able to pull it off. Like, how'd you do that, Grandpa? I don't know.
But like all of those things always come from somewhere, though. They come from, even if it's not well known, and then it turns into just like a TV trope that it was done for like 2 years for some specific thing and just never happened again, but it's just been coming up over and over and over again. Like, I think it's just such a weird thing for films and stuff to be obsessed with or to continue having in them.
I think it's one of those things, kind of like Jughead's hat, in that there's probably a very sensible, specific reason why this thing started, and then over the years it mutated. Because like Jughead's hat in Archie is the interior of a fedora, so like not the fedora with the brim cut off, turned inside out, and they put bottle caps on and pins on it, and that was like part of their the style for 5 years at the time, in the late 20s, early 30s or something. Yeah. But over time, people think his hat's a crown with like a circle and a square on it, because it's been just reduced. And I think the same thing with the underwear, writing on the underwear. I'm sure there is a very specific very logical reason where that started.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody referenced that once, and then everyone referenced the thing that referenced it, and then it's just a photocopy. Getting a photocopy of itself, getting weirder and weirder and less distinguishable.
Very blurred. Yeah. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I still just think it's weird. I just think it's so weird that it comes up so often.
He had his wallet on him. So, like, she identified him by... She would rather strip him down to his underwear and identify him by looking at what's on there than by opening up his wallet and looking at his identification. Yeah. Which would have clearly blown, jig would have been up, would have said 1985, and there were a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And to the point that he has that wallet, he uses it to try to convince Doc Brown that he's from 1985. So it's not like she couldn't have found out who he was. Mm-hmm. It's a very strange modus operandi. Yeah, I think she's just teenage girl, I guess. Dirty teenager. Yeah. But that also goes completely against what she was as an adult. And I think maybe that's the whole thing, is that she's like beaten down by how lame her husband is and how lame her life is with him. Yeah. And I guess she probably also blames that for where she ended up. So she's like, don't ever do these things or else you're going to end up like me. Yeah, there's probably a lot of internalized, like, crappiness there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she does turn out to be, they all turn out to be really sad. But I mean, that's a thing that happens, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, not to everybody, but, things don't always go exactly the way you want them to or expect them to, no matter how big your aspirations are. Yeah, I mean, not everyone can be successful, not everyone can be like what their dreams are, but you can try and approximate it as best as possible. As best as possible, exactly. One of the things the filmmakers said about this movie when they were making it, they were just like, no, I think everybody sort of would like to see what their parents were actually like as kids, because all kids grow up with their parents telling them, like, grandiose stories about, walking 8 miles to school uphill both ways with, 80-degree weather and 6 feet of snow, and you're just like, that's impossible. They're like, I did it. And we all know that's bullshit, because now, in our 30s, I can barely remember what I did when I was, like, at any given moment when I was a kid. Yeah. I was actually reading an article about this recently, and it's called youthful amnesia, or youth amnesia. And it's something that we've been studying for a long time. Originally, it goes back to as early as Freud. And Freud, because he's Freud, assumed that we have youthful amnesia because we want to repress the memories of our sexual awakening or something like that. Now, that's mostly considered bunk, but they've recently found out that, like, because our brains are developing as we're growing, the neurons that are responsible for memory storage in that period are less stable. Mm-hmm. So as the brain needs to grow and neural pathways need to be formed, the brain is likely to just write over those because it needs to create a stable lattice of, like, neurological connections. Yeah. And it doesn't deem that those young memories are worth keeping if you're continuing to form new ones and alive and well. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of research going into why we forget a lot of the stuff when we're kids. But, like, most people have complete amnesia before the age of 3. Yeah. Most people can't remember a single thing from there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us have spotty memories of childhood in between there. So, like, I think I've got a couple memories from when I was 5, maybe. Okay. But I also don't know what's a real memory and what's something that somebody told me I did and has now been reverse engineered into what I think is a memory. Yes. Well, and that's the thing. There's so, like, you spend so much time with, like, your parents or aunts and uncles, or remember the time you did this, and you're just like, no. But then you hear it too often, you're like, yeah, that was a great day. You don't really know for sure until maybe you're like 15, 20, about 15 or so, when things get relatively stable, like, if you've actually done something or not. But that's also why people think, like regression therapy doesn't actually work, and because no matter what you say, it can just implant images in people's heads, and it fills in blanks where, there may not be anything to fill in. Mm-hmm. Right? No, it's true. Yeah, and it costs people a lot of, like, problems. Like, they think they've had a trauma they never had, or they've met, a certain person they haven't, they've never met before, or, like, they've done something they've never done before. I mean, it's the ultimate form of gaslighting, right? Like, implanting a memory, basically. Yeah. Into someone's mind. Yeah. It's fucked up. And the thing is even as adults, memory is faulty no matter what. Because you will, like, with the photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy, like, you don't remember your actual memory. What they say is that, so the first time you remember something,
you remember it.
Yeah.
But the next time you remember it, you're actually remembering the memory of the event. And that's how it goes. So, like, by the time, it's 50 years down the road, dress colors change, the day changes, little details change, or little details don't even exist. You don't remember who's there, what you were really doing. You're just like, yeah, it was a really beautiful day and we were having a picnic and I had sandwiches, but really you had like pasta and it was in a restaurant. Like, it's stuff like that.
Those are the details that your brain's like, well, these don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like the minutiae doesn't matter unless it's important, right?
Yeah.
Like if spaghetti was the root of the memory, then you'd probably never forget that it was spaghetti. But the other things surrounding it doesn't, stop being as relevant, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But it takes us back to the McFlys.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's a curse. I think I'd want to see verification of what my parents' stories were about their crazy lives, especially because my parents lived. My mother was a touring musician. My dad was also a touring musician.
Yeah.
And they have crazy stories. But I mean, again, the ravages of age plus the nature of people who like to embellish.
Yeah.
Where does the truth fall? I mean, I think I'd like to see that, but only just for like a little fraction of a time. I wouldn't want to spend time or interact with my youthful parents like Marty does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think most people would probably not. Like, I mean, I think about, like, even myself. Like, if I went back, like, I could visit myself as a 15-year-old, I'd probably hate myself.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you are the worst human being ever.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
I just smack myself up and be like, I didn't straighten out.
Yeah, exactly. But imagine, like, you do it once over where you manage to meet, like, your 15, 16-year-old parents. You are not gonna like them.
No.
Like, I know Marty, like, there are things that'll be fascinating about it. Like, Marty was like, oh, my father has a creative side. This is amazing. No, my mother wasn't always this weird prude.
Yeah.
She liked to go out. She liked to do things, even though it weirds him out because it's at him.
Yeah.
Yes. But at least he knows, like, she wasn't always this sheltered.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? She had the chance and the ability to go out there and do stuff. That's cool, but personality-wise, I mean, really?
So how did nobody question Marty's existence in the 50s? Like there are people who are like, oh, where did you come from?
Mm-hmm.
But like, there was no one at the school was like the principal wasn't like, you don't attend this institution.
Mm-hmm.
He just assumed that he was a slacker like the rest.
Yeah.
But I mean, the school couldn't have been that big that you wouldn't notice this. Like, maybe the things were just so lax in the 50s they didn't care about.
I mean, it wasn't like computers and numbers, and it's just random paperwork. Maybe they lost something somewhere.
Yeah. And George like doesn't really question where he came from. Really,
he does wonder why he's following him around all the time. Though.
Yeah,
he does question that, which is understandable.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, oh, it's just taken for granted that maybe this is a guy who's been at the school the whole time and we just ignored him.
I guess it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's thoroughly possible. But it's true. Like, I mean, he's a teenager, shows up out of nowhere, doesn't go to any classes, but has lunch with people.
And dresses very different from everybody
else.
Yeah.
Yes, that is very true. We did get him out of the life preserver very early on, though.
I love that. I love all the jokes about him being a naval, like, member of the Navy, like a sailor.
Well, you had that life preserver on, even on land,
It's just a dig at that, like, crappy 80s fashion.
Yeah, but I mean, even him wearing, like the jeans he was wearing and stuff, jeans were not very popular at that time.
They were for tradespeople.
Yeah. So, like, I would think people would question him a little bit more.
Yeah.
At that point in time. And also, like he has dinner with, like, his grandparents and parents or whatever, and his mother. And, he's like, oh no, my family's out of town. Nobody offers to take him home or anything. He just gets up and walks out the door. And you're just like, but he's a teenager.
Well, she does. They do offer to call his parents. Like, he's like, do I know your mother? Marty goes, well, I think you do.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, well, I need to call her to let her know you're safe. And
yes.
That's the because he was going to stay the night and, like, recover from his injury, and then he gets out of there because Lorraine's too creepy.
Yes, grabbing his leg under the table and stuff,
Yeah.
which is uncomfortable to say the least.
Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to bring this up as well. Talking about like the family and how he met Lorraine, like his mother and stuff. But the thing is, when he saved his dad and his grandfather, I guess, hit him with the car, the first thing the guy yells is, Stella, another one of these damn kids jumped in front of my car.
Yeah.
Another one?
Yeah.
How many kids are jumping in front of your car?
Like, is he just committing vehicular manslaughter? Like,
all over the place? Like,
because I thought, like, maybe they'd gotten confused with their own timeline when they were writing it. Like, maybe that was something that got left in by accident. Like,
or maybe there was a cut scene or
that he
something.
hit George multiple times or something.
Okay.
But, I don't know, it felt weird. I'm like, yeah, was that a mistake, or are you just hitting kids with your car?
I got very worried all of a sudden. I was just like, are there bodies in your backyard? Is this what I need to know?
Maybe that's why her Uncle Joey's in prison.
Oh, you never know. That's right.
It's a family condition of vehicular manslaughter.
But apparently, he really enjoyed being behind bars as a toddler as well.
Yeah.
So it's not that I think he keeps committing crimes because he likes being in jail, not because of anything else.
Yeah, he's just happy to be there.
Which I thought was a very odd thing to have to put in there, but
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, the soundtrack about this movie, though. Huey Lewis in the News, we're going back in time. So good.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Yes.
Power of Love, Back in Time are just two fantastically great anthems that everybody remembers. It's Huey Lewis's distinct voice, the amazing musical prowess of the News. They're a super tight band. Fun fact, they're made up of a lot of talented session musicians who were just like, they would session on big studio albums for people, and Huey Lewis, when he was looking to have a band back him for his new rendition, he basically handpicked all these people to create like this super tight group of musicians. And that's why like everything they do is just so good.
Yes.
And it's just so musically tight. Very, very fun. I can't think of a better sound to represent Back to the Future as well, because like it's very 1985.
Yes.
That like there's very few things more 85 than the power of love. Like that funk bass line that comes in that's just post disco. The synth stabs from I think it's a Roland JX8P and like analog synthesizer doing the synth stabs, and like just the nice textured and respectful 80s guitar just over it, nothing too heavy, just nice layers, and then just all the swelling hitting up to the chorus. Yeah. So good.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say more about it, but you pretty much said everything about it. I mean, and also very succinctly, you said it as well.
I love Huey Lewis.
And as soon as like it starts playing, you just get into it. You get into the sound of it, and everything, And one thing I like about Huey Lewis as well, they don't have like it's their lyricism is what I'm getting at. It's their lyrics aren't like overly complex or crazy deep or anything, but they're just like nice lyrics that make sense and go somewhere and do something, whereas I find like a lot of music, not just today, even in that time period, it was just nonsense. They're just throwing things that kind of rhyme or kind of sound good together and blah. No, he actually says a story within.
Well, and that's an important part of New Wave as a genre. New Wave was very much about lyrical sensibility and about the idea that we're writing like a commentary on something. Because it came out of the punk movement, and they wanted to take the pop music sensibilities of chord progressions and interesting, like catchy melodies, and apply punk philosophy to it. And that's kind of where, the New Romantics and New Wave came from. And that's why you get these, like, really compelling songs by bands like The Cure. And that's why you get things like Huey Lewis, because they're a New Wave band. They're writing happy New Wave music, but they're very much about, this is the story, the narrative, the message we're going to tell with our song. And that's how we're going to write it. And we're just going to make sure that it's cohesive, and everything we write around that will just musically fit it.
Yeah. And I also think that's why it fits so well in this movie. I mean, on the surface, this movie's just a little pop jaunt for teenagers to have a good time. But, like, there's an actual story, and there's an actual message, and there's, it's actually a very well put together story that has a bunch of different layers to it that just really works. Yeah. And I guess the music in it reflects that, and together it makes it just better.
Movie taught me one thing is to never steal plutonium from terrorists.
Libyans, to be exact.
Very specifically Libyans, yeah.
Also, why, like, maybe I should have looked this up, maybe it has specifically to do with the time period, but why Libyans?
Gaddafi. So
that's right.
So Gaddafi was the leader of Libya, and that was where a lot of the nuclear threat was coming from, at least at that point in time. Because like the Cold War was winding down by 85, no one was really concerned that Russia would fire nukes at the U.S. and vice versa. It was more now on the rising powers that were previously Russian backed in the Middle East, and so
when researching this one, so apparently the script for this movie had been around about 6 or 7 years before it was actually made, and like studios just kept passing on it, right? So do you think when it was written, they like the enemy was like Cold War based? Like, do you think they had stolen stuff from the Russians?
Probably Russians. Yeah, I mean, I think they probably didn't even flesh it because it probably wasn't a full script. It was probably like a treatment or something. So I think, Doc Brown steals some plutonium is probably all the line that was in there to get in there. And then once it came time to actually write the screenplay, then they went down and figured out, okay, well, who's he stealing this from?
Yeah.
I love the line, they found me, I don't know how they found me, just to like write off, how would these Libyans find him
in a random mall parking lot in some town somewhere.
Yeah,
yes.
Like, I don't know how, but they found me, cool. You've done all the exposition.
They didn't try to like, maybe they triangulated no, that's in 1985, they wouldn't have triangulated positions yet. Yeah.
It's just great, it's movie magic.
Like, you're like, hey, have you seen the Doc Brown guy? And they're just like, oh, he's that way.
Yeah.
Doc Brown guy. But so it's brown guys attacking that Doc Brown guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my joke that popped into my head in the middle of saying that. I'm okay.
That's good.
Yeah, is it?
No,
I mean, is it?
Really.
Exactly. So
humor.
don't humor me, okay? Because it'll just keep happening, and then you just be like, just rolling your eyes will fall out of your head, and then we've got another issue.
I'm dead, and it's all.
Also talking about nostalgia, I mean, like, this movie is nostalgia. But watching it too, I was only 5 when this movie originally came out, which is okay, but I mean, I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, and I remember some of this technology, and like his video camera that he pulls out, like, and he has on his shoulder, I'm like, that fits in your pocket now.
I know.
You don't have to remind people to bring a video camera, you just have one on you. Things like the alarm clock or the clock radio. Do people still have clock radios? Or
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
no.
still have a clock radio. Just because, like, there's something nice about... I'm a little old-fashioned. There's something nice about a device with a singular purpose. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I have an egg timer downstairs. Yeah. Because I can just turn the egg timer, and then it goes. Yeah. Right? Like, it does one thing, it does it really well. And it's the same thing with the clock radio. I guess I could set my phone's alarm. Yeah. But, like, it's so easy to pick it up and, like, swipe even in your sleep. Clock radio, you gotta actually, like, button mash on it. You always forget, you're too tired to figure out what button actually snoozes it.
Yeah, and then it actually wakes you up.
Yeah. Yeah. But I it is kind of a dated reference because everyone used to have them.
Mm-hmm. Or the telephone in the kitchen of his house. I was just like, oh,
landlines in general.
That's true. I mean, people just don't have them anymore. And even if they have a quote unquote landline, it's a cordless phone. Yeah. They're still walking around their house and backyard and wherever they want with it. So it's still not the same sort of feel, of the time period. Like, their cars didn't have, none of the cars they showed in it had like tape decks or anything in them.
No. I mean, we didn't really get a close up on a dash though.
That's true.
The only time we got a really good shot of a car was in 2 when Marty's doing the chase scene with Biff and his Ford. But his Ford is very specifically like a 1935 model Ford, so it wouldn't have a tape deck in it.
Yeah, it just has the radio. Yeah.
Can we talk about how Marty's like greatest ambition, his greatest dream is to own that truck? Like he has no aspirations beyond owning that truck.
But I mean, no, he, like, at the beginning of the movies, his only aspiration is owning that truck. Because he is a teenager whose world is very small. Yes. Right? And he's, all I want is, like, I have a shitty life, but I can play guitar really well, and I want a cool truck to take my girlfriend to the lake with. Yeah. That's all he wants. But I think by the end of the movie,
He gets his truck.
He gets the truck. He's driving it. He's got his girlfriend now. I think he's really happy about it. But when he doesn't do that drag race, it is clear he has bigger aspirations.
Yeah, we're clear that he's at least learned that, you know, like it's a good metaphor for what happens with 2 and 3, where it's like the idea of someone's big weakness being is that someone calls you a chicken, and it's a familial genetic weakness of his that goes back. But he finally overcomes it because of what happens in 3. And that's pretty good. Like you know, just not dueling with Buford is what helps him break the family curse. That is what gets all the McFlys in trouble, right?
Yeah, right through history and always with Biff's family for some reason.
Yeah.
But one thing I also realized is that town has a lot of staying power, okay?
Yeah.
The locations, the people, the families, everybody stays. That movie takes place in 130 years. Everybody's still there.
Yeah.
The places are all still there. What?
Well, I mean, you can say that, like, because they're in California, right? And Frontier, like, California was the heart of the frontier. And a lot of people settled there. So you can see how it could go from 1800s to 1950s. Except this movie like seems to make the assumption that nobody was drafted or died in the war. That's
also a thing, yeah.
Right? Like that these families all persisted without any influence of both world wars in you know, getting in the way. And okay, assume that maybe they all got drafted and came back okay or something like that. That's fine. Like the you know, his grandparents and his parents his grandparents would have been drafted and gone back all right. That's fine. Now, the brain drain or the attrition from the 1950s to the 1980s is when we started seeing a lot of that in the US, where people would leave their hometowns, go to bigger cities. Though, you know, capitalism was growing and growing, people were going off to get educations. That was like the boomer generation growing up and leaving home.
Yeah.
These boomers did not leave home.
No, everybody stayed there and continued doing what they were doing. There's the one guy who apparently in the 1885 sold horses, but in the 1950s was cars, and 1985 was cars as well, and in the future it was upgrading. So there was that. And
the family business is all staying exactly the same.
So there's even the manure business, you know, was still there from 1885. Biff Tannen, their family business was being a tool, apparently. I don't know.
Gotta say that the worst catchphrase of the series goes to Biff Tannen, for "I hate manure." That is the worst catchphrase. You hear it 3 times.
No, but wait, no. But do you also hear what is it?
Buford says it at the end when he falls into the.
Oh yeah, no, he does. But the funny thing is the sheriff shows up and he's like, "Get him out of that shit."
Yeah.
And I swear that's the only swear word in the whole series.
No, they say shit a lot. Marty says shit a whole bunch, and anytime they're about to hit the manure pile, they go, "Oh shit," and then they hit it.
Do they actually say shit though?
They do. Yeah, I was surprised. I was actually surprised at the sheer number of shits that are thrown out that are given in that movie.
So many shits given, yes. But I guess there was so much shit about. Yeah. So, you know, which is surprising to me because I'm like, why are there just random carts full of manure everywhere in this town?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Well, in the 50s, maybe I get it, but like there weren't a lot of gardens. We didn't see any farms or gardens in the.
No, there was just regular houses with lawns in the front, but
and just a big old shit cart.
Yeah, like it just didn't make much sense to me.
No.
No.
Well, they just wanted an excuse for Biff to eat shit. That's like really, you know.
Well, I guess
more
it's
power to him.
Yeah, that's true.
So Back to the Future 2, you know, we've talked about the 80s cafe. I also love that they just merged Ronald Reagan and Max Headroom into one thing. Well. Like, you did say well a lot.
Yes, you did.
But like the big elephant in the room is they explicit, like even in 19 it was 88 or 87 was Back to the Future 2 or 89.
Back to the Future 2 was 89.
89.
Yes.
So even in 1989, filmmakers were still dunking on Donald Trump. Because that was a legitimate, deliberate, conscious choice to model Biff Tannen after Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, nothing has changed.
Yeah, I think I actually one of my notes was that, like, Wait, I thought I made a note about this. Maybe I'm making stuff up. But yeah, like it really, like one of the things that really bothered me about it is that it grossed me out how much it reminded me of Trump, and I was just like,
the big tower with all the getting his mother to have fake tits
and
like,
yeah, having like his name plastered on the thing, and everything in his room was like leopard print and gold. It was just so disgustingly gaudy.
Zemeckis has gone on record, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as confirming that it was a dig at the Trump family, and specifically because in '89, by that point, Donald Trump was in all the New York like socialite magazines talking about how rich he was and how stylish he was and all that stuff. So
stylish is never a word I would have ever contributed to Donald Trump.
No,
nobody.
But he definitely thinks he is.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the biggest fallacies about people being rich is that if you're rich and you can afford to buy all of the best things, that means you are cool and you're stylish and like what you do is the right thing.
Which is so ridiculous.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah.
Because even most fashions and styles actually come out of poor and poor and lower middle class people and regions, and then they get co-opted by the rich.
Yes.
And get turned into something fucking stupid and ridiculous.
Well,
right?
like for example, the trend right now to have like ripped jeans all the time.
Yeah.
That came from people literally not being able to repair their clothing and wore ripped jeans.
Exactly.
But now, it's stylish, and now I have to pay, $300 for these pre-ripped pants.
Or distressed shoes.
Oh God, distressed shoes. You can kiss my ass.
I know.
I'm sorry.
It's like it's so frustrating, but it's in a way as horrendous as it is to see that like most people have known about the dangers of giving power to a man like Biff Tannen since 1989. At least it's not a thing that took us by surprise. I don't know. Is that like a good thing or a bad thing? Like the fact that they were so prescient, like just bizarrely prescient.
It's definitely not a good thing.
No.
It's a bad thing because it's.
No one's paying attention.
But we've been warned about it. We did it anyway.
Yeah.
They're like, don't do that. You're gonna burn yourself, and yet you still stuck your hand on like the hot plate at the restaurant, and you're just like, I burnt myself. Yeah. No shit, Sherlock.
Everyone was just too focused on the hoverboards to see the truth. Hovergate.
Oh, hovergates. I mean, seriously, we were supposed to have flying cars, hoverboards, self-tying shoes, Mr. Fusions, which would be a great help to our society right now.
Also, okay, let's talk about Doc Brown as an inventor. So, by all accounts, until he invents the flux capacitor, he is not a fantastic inventor.
No.
Like, his amps blow up, his like breakfast machine's pretty good, but his psychic machine that he's inventing in the 50s doesn't work at all. And the only time the flux capacitor comes to him is because he falls in the bathroom, conks his head, and it's the first thing that comes to mind when he wakes up. Not because he has a scientific understanding of it, but because, like, it just appears to him in a
he just drew this picture.
Dream.
Yeah. So, Doc Brown, he doesn't know what it is. He's like, flux capacitor, this thing with this Y and lights in the middle, and literally his drawing has two pictures of, like, helps time travel, I think is what it says. And that's it.
Like, and then he's able to actually engineer it from that. Like, so either he's like a savant who just needs the kernel of the idea, or just a gaping plot hole.
But I think isn't he like the reference point for like Farnsworth on Futurama?
Yeah, and Rick for Rick and Morty.
Oh, that's very true.
But like Rick is like the opposite of that because he's like super analytical and understands how everything works.
Yeah, and then makes something for it. But the thing is with Farnsworth though is that he very much doesn't understand what he's doing, but knows what he wants to do and gets it done. Because there's a whole episode on it with his little clone or whatever. Yeah.
So it's funny because like he's also he's got a gorgeous house in the 50s. Like that 2-story, like really nice, like oh man, it just makes me jealous about. Yeah. I wish we lived in an era where we could buy houses. It's been eating too much avocado and toast, I guess.
I guess, yeah, very true. Those houses were so nice. What does Doc Brown actually do?
I think he's from old money.
So he's just like
I think he is a trust fund kid. That's why that's how he can afford to make wacky inventions all day and like not go to work, not have a job. I think he inherited money.
But that's a lot of money to inherit, because he seems to be spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
To make the things he made.
Yeah, and even the DeLorean in 1985, the DMC DeLorean was a new car, relatively new car, and a couple years old. But you're still spending good money on that when you could have bought a Pinto.
Yeah, which is just a car you can still move around in.
An AMC Gremlin. You could have bought a Gremlin for your crazy experience.
But how easy is it for them to get up to 88
miles per hour? Not really.
And also, even if they did, you'd probably need a much longer stretch of space to do that.
Yeah, you need a car that can go from 0 to 60 like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think he's got a lot of money. He must have been must have just been born into it, or someone died and gave him a lot of money, or he's got patents on something. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. But the thing is, too, is I find Doc Brown to be a very sad individual.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he's obviously, you see him in 1955. He already lives by himself.
Yeah.
Everybody in town thinks he's weird already.
I mean, he is.
And yeah, I'm not saying he's not weird.
But he's not ostracization worthy weird.
Yeah, he's just hey, did you see that Doc Brown guy? Yeah, I know, right? That's it. They're not we got to take you and lock you up somewhere. Yeah. Not yet, at least. And then he spends 30 years by himself. Somehow becomes really good friends with this 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And then they go on wacky adventures together.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at it in a whole new light now with bright light of all the Finding Neverland stuff.
Yeah.
Leaving Neverland.
I have not watched it.
I haven't watched it yet.
I can't. From the stuff I've heard, quite a few people at work have watched it.
And from what I've read, it's pretty damning.
It's not just damning, it's just heartbreaking and disgusting and just, it's just all horrible, And I think that era of, quote unquote, innocence is over, where, there was a point in time where there was a lot of stuff where it was just it's old people and young people doing stuff together. Look at shows like Punky Brewster.
Yeah.
She was a little girl who was orphaned. She makes friends with this old man, and this old man adopts her.
Yep.
It's very innocent. It's very nice. But, if you put a TV show like that on TV now, people will be just oh no, there's something wrong.
Yeah, what's that guy doing?
What is that guy doing, Yeah. Whereas back then, there was no, he's an adult. He's trusted. He knows what's best for this child, and this child trusts him, so it has to be a good thing.
Well, I think we've been burned enough times with, from Catholic priests to abuses of power by people like Michael Jackson and people who we trust as a society. Mm-hmm. I think it's rightfully earned that we're all skeptical, because, who are you supposed to trust more than your local clergy? Who are you supposed to trust more with your kids than, medical professionals and people who are in these positions of power to take advantage of them? So, I get why everyone's skeptical and weirded out by it, because we've been proven time and again that humans aren't trustworthy, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody, but the people who are in positions of power, enough of them have, defiled our trust. So as to have us not be trustworthy of any, trusting any of them.
Yeah, and I think the saddest part about it too is that there have been quite a few cases where people put themselves in that position of power just to be able to abuse it as well.
I think that's what it is, right? It's the idea of chameleons hiding in plain sight. I'm I can abuse this power if I'm in a position where people trust me with that power, right?
Yeah, yeah. And as you have as long as you have all the control, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to do anything. It's going to be fine.
That's why I say the person who wants to be head of state probably shouldn't be head of state.
Yes, yeah.
Right?
And that's also been proven in I'm going to say proven in the most lax manner, where you watch all those movies where people somebody's the man who would be king or something. Or I was even watching Kung Fu Panda yesterday. Yeah, that's right. I watch cartoons on weekends.
Yeah.
And the whole point of it is, the bad guy in it, he wants to be the Dragon Warrior. And they're no, you're not the Dragon Warrior. He's and he can't understand why he can't be a Dragon Warrior. Whereas Poe comes in, and he's he loves the people that he's with. He wants to be better, but he doesn't believe he's a Dragon Warrior, and that's what makes him the Dragon Warrior, Because when he gets there, he's not going to abuse his position. He's not going to abuse his space. He's worked hard for it. Captain America.
Yeah.
It's a trope that's permeated a lot of our, not even necessarily sci-fi or fantasy culture, but just you know, even like political dramas and procedural TV shows and all that kind of stuff. You're like, no, the person who really, like, there's nothing wrong with working towards being something, but if you're at the point where you believe you deserve to be there, you probably don't.
Well, I mean, most of those just go back to all our myths and legends surrounding humility.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like almost all, if you go back to proto-cultures and like, you know, Babylonians, and you go back to Sumerians and all that, they all have, there's always a story about humility somewhere in there, about, you know, not lusting for power, but enjoying what you have, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we've just reinterpreted that again and again and again, right? Like you look at the stories in the Greek myths, the Norse myths that also retell those tales of like, and then we look at it in our modern myths, which are our televised dramas, which are our comic books. Like we venerate the characters who are humble, who are like Captain America is the definition of humility.
Yes. Right?
Like he's always sacrificing himself to save others at no personal gain, and usually at a personal detriment. Yes. And that's what we look for, and we you know, story-wise, we laud as heroism. But then in real life, we like support shitty people because it's so like obfuscated from us, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, like I guess that kind of goes back to the whole idea of like, for example, when Hillary Clinton lost the election, like I was like, I don't understand this. They're like, oh, but she's just a politician. I'm like, but that's what makes her qualified for the job. She's worked and done everything to be a politician.
Yeah.
And this is like, it's like moving up through a company, you know? She was a lawyer, she was like, she was a congressman, right? Sure. Yeah, she was a congressman, like, and she moved, senator. She did the thing, so she's moving up through the company. The top level is being a president, and then you're just like, oh, you have experience doing all of the things, and now you want to be president of the company? But why? You're perfect for being a president. Why would we hire you? But I think maybe it has to go back to that sort of our idea of humility and stuff. You have to be humble to be there. But she never said, I deserve to be president.
No.
She said she's worked hard to be in that position.
Well, I mean, with the HRC, there's a lot of, like, internalized misogyny, societal misogyny, obviously. Mm-hmm. Her lack, like, her skills were without reproach, but her lack of charisma was also, like, it's hard when you've got someone like Bernie Sanders and her, and then you've got Donald Trump on the other side. You've got, like, just people throwing charisma bombs and saying, like, wacky shit, and she's just being the level-headed, measured person, which is what you want in an elected official.
But, you know, speaking about the misogyny, like, if you had a woman with the level of charisma as, you know, Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, where they're yelling things and they're angry and they're, you know, screaming things about their opponent, she would just be a hysterical woman.
Well, and look how the media is treating AOC right now. Because the AOC is, she is unafraid to just come out and be like, this is something that is happening. We can all observe it. It's stupid.
Yes.
And then they're spinning her as fiery, as testy, as, you know, like, it's garbage. Mm-hmm. But
or the other thing they do is they relegate her to a fashion icon, quote unquote, and where they're like, they don't even talk about what she's talking about. They're like, oh, what is she wearing today?
Yeah, it's so reductive.
And you're just like, come on, like, seriously? They did it to Hillary and her thing too. They're like, oh, what panel was she on? But she wore a similar pantsuit to somebody else. They were both wearing blue suits or something. Yeah. They weren't the same. They just both happened to be blue.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, look at your fashion choices, blah, blah, blah. Yet every man that goes up there wears a black suit with a tie.
Yeah.
Nobody says a word about
it. No, of course not.
So...
yeah, it's...
you know, but also that's still just focusing on the wrong thing. Like, I think they were talking about, like, women's rights and abortion and, you know, moving legislation forward. And, like, it was a very big, very important issue. And this article I read only talked about what they were wearing. And then at the bottom, it was like, this was a summit for blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what? What is
wrong and that's the culpability of the news cycle that we live in now, which, you know, nobody could have predicted. That's one of the things thinking about Back to the Future. They predict the big stuff, like, oh, you know, there's going to be more technology in the future, sure. Yes. But the ramifications of what CNN started when it became the first 24/7 news channel was unpredictable, and then the internet exacerbated it, which is the idea that because news is a business, you now have to crank out articles and headlines faster than ever, which means you get less editorial review. It means you get less fact checking, and you get more sensationalist headlines to get people to click things, to get people to make money, to fuel the cycle so that everyone can keep their jobs, which is fine. I get that. But like the lack of in-depth reporting on these things can be attributed to the fact that people demand content every second of every day, and nobody can keep up, and there's just this constant lack of oversight on that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have now with like the whole fake news epidemic that we're having, and where it's like articles being filtered into news cycles that claim to be real news, and they're truthful enough that you might think this might be real, but they're ridiculous enough for you to just question it, you know. But it's become so hard to like what's real and what's fake, especially because of the atmosphere of the world right now. Because there are so many actual ridiculous things happening that you're just like, okay, maybe this is true. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I was reading an article that the people who get hired by Facebook to do fact verification are more likely to become radicalized by the conspiracy theories and facts that they read than other people, because they're just constantly exposed to it. And I think there's a study at like Cambridge, like Department of Psychology, talking about how like continual exposure to misinformation, even if you understand that misinformation is false, will make you likelier to accept it to be true. Because you're just, if you see the same thing again and again and again, your brain goes like, well, this is obviously a fact, even if you can logic your way out of it. And so it turns out like a lot of the fact checkers at Facebook become conspiracy theorists. Yeah. Because they read about flat Earth and...
But is that the reason why they become conspiracy theorists? Or is it because you have so much access to information that you have the ability to be able to connect dots where there really aren't any dots?
That's probably
but there's like a layer that's available to you.
You start seeing connections that aren't there. Yeah, it's probably quite a huge part of it as well.
What was it, like 2 years ago, a year ago or something? You may have actually sent me this thing. There was a website that did abstract correlation between two things. Yeah. And it was just fascinating. There's just like the death of the dinosaurs brought on the advancement of Pez. And you're just like, what? But it's true. Pez didn't exist before dinosaurs died. Yeah, so
it was the causality versus correlation like calculator, right? It's like, just because these two things have happened does not mean they are causal. It means that they are correlatives. Like, yes, you can correlate the death of the dinosaurs to the advent of Pez through multiple links, but you can't say that the death of the dinosaurs created Pez, was the causation of Pez's creation.
Exactly. And that the thing is, that site came out because of some of the ridiculous things that people had started to say, and you're just like, but those two things don't actually go together, and one is not the cause of the other. They just happen to have happened. Yeah. At that time, you know?
So to bring it back to Future 2 for a second, I was thinking about this last night. So Biff gets rich and he builds his Biff Tower and coerces Lorraine into marrying him and all that jazz. I get that. But like, how can he rewrite laws? And why is there like a Mad Max post-apocalyptic Escape from New York thing happening?
Just in that city.
Yeah, just in Hill Valley. It's just... This is madness, and he turned in his own feudal state. Where's the National Guard?
I mean,
where's state police?
But he did indicate that he has people in the government, and he's bought the police in in Hill Valley and stuff, and so maybe that's just one of the things. I don't know, or maybe we didn't really see that much of Hill Valley. Like what we saw was Lion Estates is decrepit and all that kind of stuff going downhill. And then you saw Biff's Tower. Yeah. That was pretty much it, right?
Yeah, that's really all you see.
So maybe, that kind of Mad Max feel was just, the parking lot in Biff Tower, with all his minions hanging about.
Burning barrels and shit.
Yeah. But I mean, like, when you see, for example, Lion's Estate, like, I think of places like Detroit. Yeah. Like, that happens. Like, you have these big structures that are multi-million-dollar companies beside complete rundown like neighborhoods and everything, and they are trying to buy people out, they are trying to kick people out, and they're trying to force them to give up their land and stuff just so they can expand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought that was very... I guess it was probably of the time as well. Like, that was something that was going on at that time.
Yeah, well, the boom and bust of the suburban communities, right? And that started in the late 40s, early 50s after the war, and then, like, you know, the contrast of the dream of suburbia, and then, like, you know, what would happen if that suburbia wasn't taken care of, you know? That's that was, like, an interest. I loved alternate universe 1985, evil in 1985, as it were. But I thought the movie got to its coolest point when Marty goes back to the 50s.
Oh, agreed.
And
very
now
good.
has to work around footage of him and his family interacting, and it created so many cool scenes.
So before I get to that, I just want to say, like, every time I watch Back to the Future 2, I always like, oh, Back to the Future 2 is about them being in 2015, which I always forget it's not.
No.
Like, they're only in 2015 for, what, 20 minutes, half an hour, or something like that?
There's the chase scene, and, like, and Biff stealing the almanac, and that's really it. Like,
and then they go back, and then I was watching, I was like, oh yeah, they don't spend that much time in the future.
Yeah.
It's all about going back to 1955 again. And then, like you said, how amazing it is how they recreate and use some footage from the first movie and integrate it into this story. It's fantastic. It's amazing.
So Biff has been established as not being a very smart character. How does future Biff figure out how to use the DeLorean?
That was one of my biggest questions, too. I'm like, he sat in that car, except for bumping into a couple of trash cans backing up. He figures how to get it to a certain place and time, find his younger version, give it to him, get back in time, park it exactly where it was before, and get away without anything.
And he didn't know, he had no knowledge that the car had to hit 88 miles an hour.
Nope.
Like all these limitations and restrictions, he had no idea how to use.
And also, when like Doc and Marty got back into the car, wouldn't they have been like, "Hey, the dates are all changed.
Yeah.
What's going on?"
Or no, because the date would be back to when they showed up, right? Because he took the date, sent it back to the future. Because future Biff came back, so the date would have been.
Well, the dates would have been the same, wouldn't they? Okay, no.
Well, they would have noticed that their mirrors were adjusted or the seats were adjusted.
Something.
Biff probably came in and fucked up with the steering wheel, you know,
Which I just thought that was just so weird. I'm like, how is he so...
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a regular car where you just kind of sit in and shift and you go. You got to do some very specific
And he was just
things.
bizarrely competent for Biff Tannen.
Yes. But is that age, though?
Is that age, and also, like, maybe he knows this is his one chance to fix his life.
Yeah, I do kind of feel sad for Biff, too. But they never actually really get into why Biff is such a dick. He's just a dick.
Yeah, they kind of they look like they're going to when they deal with him, like...
They show it at this show's house.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, they're going to talk about his home life? No.
Yeah.
Also, Griff, what a dumb name. That's like, when I found out recently, because I'm not an anime guy, but when I found out that there's a legitimate sequel to Naruto about his son named Boruto, and all I could think of was board license plates.
Oh my god. Why Boruto?
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
So there's like Griff Tannen is like Boruto.
Yeah.
Like, his name doesn't have to rhyme with Biff. You just use the name Tannen.
Yeah, like it's Steve Tannen. We get it. We know exactly who you are now. Yeah. It's fine. But also, Griff Tannen is the worst bad guy ever.
Yeah, there's nothing compelling about him.
No, there's nothing interesting. There's nothing there. They talk about him having like that plate on his head is actually like some sort of bionic something or other, and then he's got like a bat that gets bigger for no reason, and he just starts yelling at people.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Yeah, it's too. I guess they're like, in the future we'll all be idiots who this will be the purge.
Yeah, we'll have weird bionic things on us.
So then they go back and they go back to the 50s, and that's some cool scene. One thing that gets me though, so like Doc Brown is so fucking egotistical that at the end he starts talking to himself while he's walking up the street, having a conversation with himself, looking away, and about the weather and about the experiment. You don't think that past Doc Brown wouldn't recognize his own goddamn voice?
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd is a very distinct voice.
He does have a very distinct voice. It's not like a, I can't even think, what's a normal? But no, like, no matter how distinct or quote-unquote normal your voice is, you will be able to pick out your own voice.
Exactly.
From everybody else.
And what, you're gonna, like, look this way while walking down the street and never once turn your head to look at the person addressing you?
Yeah. That'd be my first cue, like, this guy's doing something wrong. What's happening? And also about that, I don't understand at the end of the movie, not the second one / beginning of the third one, where, so Marty shows back up right as the DeLorean goes to the future.
Yeah.
Fine, right? And he's like, no, I came back from the future now. And Doc cannot believe that. He's like, no, this is impossible. I'm like, you just sent a time machine through time.
Yeah.
Why isn't it possible for him to come back?
You're like cheering at the success of your... Yeah, they're like, oh, future boy. It's like, well, who else would he be?
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially because you just saw Marty. You know it's Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know exactly who he is. You've just used a time machine, so why isn't it conceivable that he could have come back?
Yeah. Also, to pick more nits, so when he recruits 50s Doc to dig and find the DeLorean that like was left and repair it, right? Why wouldn't he leave instructions to like bring a spare gas can? Because
he doesn't know about that yet. Because remember, they went to 1885 the day after.
Right.
He wrote the letter.
But like, if you know that the thing can only run on ethanol to get it up to speed, right? You think you'd just ask him to pack an extra gas can anyways if you don't know what the tank levels are. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's.
But also, my other question too is like, but why wouldn't Marty know that? Because they've been driving the car around, so wouldn't they have to fuel up a couple of times?
Yeah. Wouldn't they have to like go go
to some gas and
fucking Esso and gas up?
You know, like. So yeah, there's a lot of questions about that part. I didn't really get it. Yeah. And also speaking of going back to 1885. I don't understand why his great-great-grandparents both of them looked like his mother and him.
It's Milhouse syndrome. Why do Milhouse's parents both look like Milhouse? I don't know.
It's just weird.
Oh, la-da-da, it's me, McFly. Yeah. With my terrible Irish accent.
Oh my god, it was so bad.
Fiddle-dee-dee. Like, it's very...
Well, he got his accent from Lucky Charms commercials. That's all he needs. True. Practice in front of the mirror all the time.
And the brother Martin McFly always getting into trouble because people call him chicken.
Yeah, which I don't understand. Like, I mean, we've mentioned this already, but was that an actual thing that Marty had in the first movie that somebody called him chicken and he lost it?
Yeah. Yes.
Was that in the second one?
No, there's a chicken encounter in the first one.
Is it in the soda shop?
It is. It's when he gets into that's what precipitates the chase scene.
That's right. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
But it's what a weird character trait. I just don't get it.
I think the thing is they don't focus on it on the first one. It only happens once in the first one.
Yeah.
But in the second and third movie, they do it over and over and over and over again. It's like constantly going back to it, referencing it. And I know it ends up being like a relatively big part of the second two movies. But at the same time, you're like, no, not really. We get it. Fine. It's okay.
Can we talk about Western Union for a second?
Yes.
Okay. So, bear with me now. You're a Western Union employee in 1885. Mm-hmm. Someone comes up to you and says, hi, I need you to deliver a letter in 70 years. Wait, it's 50 years, right? No, it's 70 years. 70 years. Yeah, exactly 70 years. On this exact date, this exact minute, at this location, which might not exist yet, how is he specifying that exact that?
No, road? He would never. That did not exist at all.
Yeah.
Yet. Yeah.
So anyway, be it this this many paces from this nearest thing, northeast, whatever. At this exact second, you'll meet a man named Marty McFly, and he looks like this. Give him this letter. Mm-hmm. I, the clerk person at Western Union, would have been like, "Sir, that's not an address.
Yeah.
Can you please fill out this form correctly?"
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone would accept that, let alone store it for 70 years and then deliver it.
Yeah, and especially people have a bet. It's obviously known this letter exists.
Yeah.
And people at Western Union have bets on if this person's going to be real or not.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is not like a time of GPS and stuff. People don't just walk around with like locate like GPS systems to locate like the exact coordinates you're supposed to be at. So he would have to describe the thing at Lion's Gate where the construction is, and you'll see a kid, and it's raining that day, and you'll see a kid standing in the streets because the street doesn't exist. What the hell is a Lion's Gate thing? There are no roads. Yeah. What are you talking about? I agree with you. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. It's just
I mean, that's where your suspension is. It's a cool concept. It's a cool idea that he left a note to be delivered. But, like, he could have done that. He could have buried it like he did with the DeLorean. But then I guess it wouldn't have been found.
Yeah. But also, does that mean that there are 2 DeLoreans in that time period?
Yes. There have to be, right? Because... No, they're not. Because the other DeLorean was sent back, right? Doc Brown sent Marty back to 1985.
No. In 1885...
In 1885... In 1955, he gets struck by lightning. Yes. The whole DeLorean gets sent back to 1885. Yes. He then parks the DeLorean, covers it with a tarp. Buries it. Then they discover it and find it, but there's still only one DeLorean.
No. But that DeLorean in 1885, they go back in time to 1885, the day after he would have buried the DeLorean. Yes. So there are 2 DeLoreans. My thing is, why would they just go find that DeLorean, take the gas out of it, put in the other one, so in 1955 they just have to put some gas in it?
Paradox.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
you're right. There are 2 DeLoreans, and that is causality. Like, that is a problem. There's a problem with reality right there.
Yes. But that's also in 1955. There's a point where there are 4 DeLoreans in 1955. Yes. Which also creates a problem with Doc's theory about how the time travel works, because it doesn't actually make any sense what he's saying. Because the problem is he's saying that, so old Biff goes back to 1955, gives young Biff the almanac. Fine. Time splits there. Yeah. But the problem is, old Biff comes back to the timeline where that didn't happen.
Yes. I don't think he could do that.
He could not do that. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, so that's why that whole thing doesn't make any sense. Because 3 seconds later, they start talking about the splitting of time and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, but that goes against what Biff just did.
Yeah, because Biff would go back to a future where... Well, also, Biff would erase his current future. Like, he would find himself not wearing those raggy clothes because he has now made...
No. He would not... No, he would still find himself wearing those raggy clothes because that is contained in the time machine.
Right, yeah.
But when he got back, he would have been rich, crazy Biff with the big tower, not going back to poor Biff reality and getting... Doc Brown the car back, because they'd come back out and the car would just be gone.
And Doc Brown would be in a mental hospital in that future.
Or somebody would have... Yes.
He's probably really old. He's probably dead. Mm-hmm. And Marty would have been a completely different character in a boarding school. Like, that future, the future of evil 1985 is not one that Marty and Doc could exist in as they are now.
Exactly. That is very true, right? So they would have... So much more stuff would have changed compared to just the title on their newspaper that they're running around with all the time. But if you're there and things are actively changing, as soon as Biff got into that car, you are not within the time machine. Yeah. So all of a sudden, their clothes would change. They'd be in different places. Yeah. Stuff would start moving around, and they'd be like, "Oh my god, what's happening?" You know. Yeah. Because that's what happened in the first movie. Because as soon as the timeline showed that he would not be born. Also, sorry, okay. Yeah. That also brings back another question. In the picture, wouldn't Marty, since he's the youngest, start disappearing first?
Yes.
So, okay. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure. That's all. Yeah. But, like, with that first movie, as you could see, the future, or the change of the future, immediately affects him if he's not within the time machine. Yeah. So, everything around, like, they would have just gone poof, something completely different, and everything would have been, like... Yeah. Nothing else would have been able to happen.
Yeah, I mean, they basically Biff would have won and the movie would have ended there.
Yes.
Right? Because that's, if they're following their own internal rules and logic. But I think they realized, fuck, we can't do that.
Of course not. Because you're just like, oh, Biff took the car. Credits roll. Yeah. It's over. They're like, what's going on? That'd be it. Yeah. Yeah. Then we'd have to find an alternate reality where somebody didn't do that. And then maybe this is the reality we're in right now. We don't know.
In a way, because Doc Brown... went back in time, like Doc and Marty were able to go back in time and stop Biff. There's never a universe where Biff could succeed because they'd always just keep going. Like you got a loop now.
You got a loop, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where like even if they went like they decided to wait 2 years before going back in time, they could still fix it, right? Like or if they fucked up, well, the future versions of them already still exist, right? Like there's actually no. If you think about the way the physics actually work in their storytelling rather than how they tell you they work, there's no timeline in which they fail to stop Biff.
Exactly, because everything would be a loop. Because every timeline they're in, for some reason, they still get access to the time machine and stop Biff.
Yeah.
So no matter how many times that timeline splinters, it gets remedied.
Yeah, and there's also the MacGuffin that the Doc can just build a time machine whenever.
Yes.
So speaking of which, how did he build a train? So, okay, he built a train that runs entirely on steam that can fly and time travel.
Yes. I don't ask him. I don't know.
Like he needed Libyans to build his first one.
Wait, but the whole flying train thing, I assumed he built the train on tracks and then went to the future, got upgraded to flying.
Or we just took stuff off the DeLorean because we already established that there's a DeLorean in the 1800s.
Yeah, but he can't take that DeLorean.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. He can't because otherwise
exactly. So
yeah, I guess
that DeLorean has to stay buried no matter what.
But the biggest thing is like how is he getting enough power to like the 1.21 gigawatts?
Yeah.
In 1885.
That is a very good question.
Lightning, maybe more lightning.
Maybe more lightning. Yeah, like, he did full on Frankenstein and the train on top of the thing. It was like and it just zaps into the future at some point.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's got to be going 88 miles an hour first.
Oh, that's right.
So
No, because in the second movie, when the one gets hit by lightning, it's hovering still in the air.
Oh yeah,
it just goes zoop.
Yeah, how is that even possible?
Well, because he says it activated the flux capacitor and did something to the thingy things, and then poof.
There's no internal consistency in this movie.
I actually never understood why it had to go 88, because really the crux of it was having enough power to activate the flux capacitor. So why did it have to be going fast?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like if you're stationary, like there's danger to the occupants, or I don't know. I just think the line, they wanted to have that line, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious shit. Yeah, there's your first shit in the movie right there, too.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, why did
it's all over the place.
It is all over the place, now I rethink about it. I don't know, like, maybe it's because, I was watching this third movie when you showed up to record this, and maybe it's because I was sitting there tentatively watching it, like, and also the way the guy says it in it, like, in the movie, he's like, get him out of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so emphasized compared to everywhere else. It's kind of like, holy shit, or like you said, like, there's gonna be some real shit, and it just goes.
I think they family friendlied up the third one a little bit more.
Yes, it was actually a lot more, not comical, goofy?
He was a lot goofier.
It was a lot goofier, yes.
Clint Eastwood. How is Marty able to, like, shoot so well at the gallery? Like,
because remember, they make reference in every single movie that he played that gun shooting game.
Yeah, but I mean, shooting a real gun is hard.
I've never shot one, so I can't.
Especially guns like back then that would have a huge amount of kickback.
Recoil. Yeah, that's the thing. But according to them, there was no recoil in that one in 1885. It was just fine.
Yeah.
But also, even a baby could shoot that gun. I don't know why a baby would want to shoot a gun unless you're Stewie, but
it happens in the US all the time.
Oh god. Oh, that's another really dark topic that I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you sit there and you analyze the movie, there's issues.
Man, Doc's a lightweight too. One shot of whiskey and he's out.
Yeah.
I want the recipe to that wake up juice though.
It looks torturous.
It sounds torturous, but man, there's been days when I have a hangover and I'm like, I just want this to go away.
Yeah.
Pop out Sailor Man that.
Yeah. You gotta wait 10 minutes. So 10 minutes before you gotta do anything.
Yeah.
You'll be good to go.
Yeah.
I mean, people have always sworn by different, hangover recipes and all that kind of stuff.
They're almost always gross. You notice that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think they have to be gross because they need to be a shock to the system. And that's what actually wakes you up. It's your system, waking up to fight what you've just done to it.
It's like, we just spent the night poisoning ourselves. Okay, and we need to recover from this poison.
Yeah.
I know. I'll eat some raw eggs and some Tabasco sauce and like chili or whatever. And it's like,
and your system's just like, what have you done? Don't you, what? And so then you're awake.
Yeah.
Done, you know.
You might be puking all day, but you're fine.
I never understood the whole raw egg thing. Like, it's disgusting. What?
Just take a few minutes and cook cook it.
Yeah, just
or like even throw in some boiling water, make a boiled egg. Like, it's not hard.
Yeah.
Just don't need to eat it raw.
No.
What are you, Rocky?
Which is even worse. That scene where he's like, what is 8 in a cup?
It's three in a cup.
It's 3?
1, 2, 3.
Maybe it was like some sort of like parody of that, but the one thing I watched, they had like 8 or 12 or something in a cup, and they just drank it, and I was just like, I can't even watch you.
Yeah, it's hard. I can't.
No, I don't. No. But my favorite hangover recipe is where people say, no, you just have to go get in some greasy food and you're good.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
That was good. And also, I swear by vitamin B6.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, so I was reading about what are the many different causes of hangovers. And it's actually just multiple different things all compounding, right?
Yeah.
Dehydration, your liver's breaking, the ethanol you drank down into acetyl ethanol, which is poison in high doses, and there's all these various other things, and one of them is a depletion of vitamin B6, and that's what causes, like, when you're crazy, like at the far end of the spectrum, like delirium tremens, the handshakes, and all that. That's from a depletion of vitamin B. So,
but what would cause the depletion of vitamin B?
Your liver.
Like, the liver working overtime.
Yeah. So I've started, if I know I'm going to be out on a heavy night of drinking somewhere, I'll pop a B6 beforehand, and then one before I go to bed, and it does lessen it. And there is a study that said that, like, if you do it like that, it lessens the effects of some hangovers. But I mean, at the end of the day, the easiest hangover cure is to not get shit faced. But
no, it's called hair of the dog. What are you talking about?
That is true. I mean,
oh, it's always hair of the dog. I'm gonna get some of your drinks. So
yeah,
I'll grab you a beer.
Oh, thank you. Fuck, these movies are so fun to talk about because they're just, the internal consistency does not exist.
No, it doesn't exist. But they did it in such a way that it's just.
Well, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter
because it's so fun. Thank you. Like, it's so fun. Who cares if, like, Biff doesn't make any sense? You know, you know, like a robot pouring for you in there.
No, it's a Brita.
Oh, your Brita. Oh,
thing.
It's just like a Brita with a self-latching latch.
I'm not that fancy.
You got a fridge robot.
One day,
what is this, Back to the Future 2?
One day. Also, one thing I noticed about that, like, the future, why did the cops dress like they were strippers, or...
Yeah!
Or sort of like they were the outfits from, oh god, I'm gonna blank. The Sylvester Stallone movie. Judge Dredd.
Judge Dredd, yeah.
You know?
They did look really weird, but I guess future cops, I don't know.
Or maybe they got, you remember that, you said future cops, so that triggers something in my brain. Remember the TV show, the cartoon cops?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
COPS.
Yes.
Fighting Crime in a Future
Time. Yeah. They actually kind of remind me of that now that I think about it.
Yeah. Where's Long Arm? And,
yeah, I remember loving that show. It was one of the get home after school, it came on, and I had to sit there and watch every single episode.
Yep.
But it angers me that I remember very little about the show.
I mean, it was pretty unremarkable narratively speaking. Like, nothing crazy important happened. The characters were like, they were cool, but not like extra cool. You know, like, it was just a fun show. I more have a fondness for Mask.
Oh, I remember Mask.
Just because that theme song. It's fucking great.
I don't know. I still to this day insist the best theme song ever made is the original Thundercats theme song.
Oh, it's great. Thundercats
it's a combination of the lyrics, it's just super cheesy and everything, but it gets like that fire and power inside you, you know? And then that music just kind of hits and you're just like, yeah! The lion roar at the beginning. Thundercats are on the move. Thundercats are loose.
Like, it's like and even this the chorus, which is just the word thunder, 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 thundercats.
Yeah.
But it's good. It feels powerful. It feels like it's the chorus, the choir of people doing it. Like,
it gets you into it. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, the original Transformers theme is still also one of the best. obviously the way it was done for the first rendition of the cartoon, it was kind of like poorly recorded and scratchy and kind of like weird and airy.
Yeah.
But when they re-recorded it for the movie, animated film, it just solidified that composition.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a great song. Like I'm not saying like I think a lot of like kid shows and stuff like that now have good theme songs. I'm not saying they're bad theme songs. I think one of my biggest problems is they don't put as much focus on the theme song to like get you into like the vibe of the show. I find that a lot of the theme songs don't really match the vibe of the show.
Even so, in the 80s and early 90s, cartoons, the theme songs would actually be worked into motifs in the actual soundtrack of the episode. So like you hear a variant on the Thundercats theme as part of the orchestral score of an episode.
Yes,
and it kind of solidified it as being in the universe. But you don't really do that now. Like the intros for cartoons nowadays are just very wholly different from what the episodes sound like.
Yes.
And also,
except for Gravity Falls.
Except for Gravity Falls.
Yes.
They do a good job of being old school like
yes.
that. And I think we're kind of witnessing the death of the intro theme in general. Like Netflix's skip intro button, and like which I think is a travesty. I love a good intro.
Well, I think they put that in there simply because people they binge watch. They don't need to hear, you know, the same theme song 12 times in like 6 hours.
Maybe if it was an amazing theme song, they would.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, while I was watching when I did the episode for Arrested Development, I watched the theme song, like the beginning, every single time. And I know it was in the DVD, and I know I was just, you know, play all episodes, but that theme song came on every single time, and I loved it.
Like sometimes the artistry of the intro, like the art of the title, as it were, the Dexter intro.
Yes.
Like that, just the whimsical theme song that show had with like the beautiful juxtaposition of him getting ready for his day, but making each thing look like a murder. Yeah. It was just gorgeous to watch. It was always nice to listen to.
Yeah. And it's true, like things like that are
or like Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, don't even get me started on that one.
Like that intro is just
it's pure art on every level, visually, audibly.
And the composer, she took the Danny Elfman score as a root and then ran with it and did her own thing and made it even better.
Yes, yeah. It's definitely one of those things. I mean, well, speaking of like title cards, I found the title cards for these movies to be quite lacking.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth. Like, especially that first movie, it's like
it's to zoom in.
Yeah. And then they just had the title card for the show was just flack, Back to the Future, off. That was it. Done. And then but the zoom in was until the second movie.
Yeah, also till the end at the end of Back to the Future 2, you have the weird worded choice of to be concluded.
Yes.
Not to be continued. Mm-hmm. Very odd choice.
I don't think it's odd. I think they did it purposefully because they were just like, no, it's 3.
Yeah.
It's done. We're not doing, because if it was saying to be continued, we'd have this problem that we have with like Terminator right now, where they're just like, let's throw in a whole bunch of other crap over here to fill in stuff that nobody asked you to fill in. Boom.
True.
You know.
Speaking of score, the Ellen Silvestri score for Back to the Future is super iconic.
Yes, it is.
You know, we talked obviously about Huey Lewis, but you can't really talk about Back to the Future without talking about the audio stings. Yeah. And like that, and the main theme, like that, like it's very nice and heroic. It's reminiscent of a Western. Mm-hmm. It's done in that almost John Williams style.
Yeah, I actually had to look up who did the score for this because I thought it was John Williams at first.
Alan Silvestri had this bit like period where he was doing a lot of Williams-esque stuff because that's what was popular in the 80s, right? Yeah. Like, you know, you can thank Indiana Jones for that.
It's solidification, yes.
But all the little stuff, like again, the stings and the audio, like the musical audio cues, were just so important to that film.
Yes,
and also game-like. Like to bring it back to your very first point, it's very gamey. Where like, you know, when Link gets a chest and it's like da 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 da. That's exactly how it kind of felt with Back to the Future. You knew something tiny or weird was up when you heard the chimes, or like there was unraveling of something, or like as you said, a chest, like something was found. Then the sting happened. You know, it was really very. And the thing is too is like they're not intrusive sounds either. They're not like something that will make you all of a sudden just like notice it. But at the same time, they're important enough that if it was missing,
there would definitely be something.
Yeah.
You wouldn't pick up on certain things with it. That cue was there.
And I feel like that's kind of, obviously, Sylvester was involved in making sure that sounded great and worked, but I think that's kind of a thing of Bob Zemeckis. Like, if, you know, even if you watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that also kind of feels very, like, game-like in the way it plays out. And he just, like, I think he's just very whimsical, and I think he just likes, he likes stories that reward the viewer for paying attention.
And that's the thing with the series, too, is that if you are paying attention, you are rewarded through the second and the third movie.
Yeah.
Especially the second movie if you pay good attention to that first movie, you know? And the way the scenes are, like, for example, the scene where they're back at the dance, the Enchantment of the Sea dance. And you have, you know, the second 1985 Marty McFly. We'll call him Fedora Marty McFly. Yeah. He's in, like, the rafters, and Biff's, like, cronies are at the side.
Was it like a 1950s style to wear 3D glasses? One of his cronies is always wearing like 3D like anaglyphic red blue 3D glasses.
But he does that through all of them. Like every time you see him, he's wearing it. But I think 3D movies were becoming a thing at that point in time. Because I remember one of the there was a movie called Matinee. You ever seen that movie?
No.
Great little movie, and it's about this guy who owned this movie theater in the 1950s and stuff. And it showed 3D movies, but it was one of the first like 4D experiences, you know. So like he'd have
or whatever.
Yeah, he'd have like big fans would come on, or there'd be like he'd watch a movie and like one of them was like them or something with rats in it. Oh no, not them is ants. No, there's one with rats. But there's a scene, for example, where like there's a horde of rats running towards the screen. And he did like a thing under the seats, so it'd start to go like this, you know, so like people would feel it and they'd freak out, like that kind of thing. And so I think maybe that is a reference to the craze of like that time, because it was like now where 3D has come back in the worst way possible. Yeah. But that was like the first experience with like 3D and all that kind of stuff. So he maybe thought he was cool.
Yeah, it probably is the actual answer there. But it's funny, whenever you see him, he's always wearing 3D glasses.
Yeah, which I didn't actually pick up until halfway through the second movie.
Yeah. Because
I saw him as the future crony, and he was wearing the glasses with one blue and one red. And I was just like, what?
And then when you go back,
he goes back, then he has the other one. And the funny thing is his look in the future reminded me of...
Transmetropolitan?
Yes, Transmetropolitan. Yes. He reminded me of that guy.
Yeah.
Even though Transmetropolitan came way after.
Oh, for sure.
Or maybe that's what it was kind of based on. I don't know. I'm guessing out there.
That's pretty cool. But yeah, so you're talking about future Marty crawling through the rafters and like dropping sandbags on these goons. First of all, Marty could have killed these kids.
Yes, he may have. We don't know. Well... We kind of know.
Well, we don't know if they're dead or not. We kind of don't really get an update on them. But I guess the future would be different if he killed them.
Yes. But who would have been blamed for the death is the real question. Because there was no fingerprinting at the time, so they couldn't have framed Marty. Plus, he was already on stage.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's the 1950s. There were African-American performers. The band would be blamed on the death of that kid. And
Yeah. You know, that's sad, but it's true. Wait, did
especially all that reefer. They were probably smoking.
Get arrested and stuff. I'm surprised the cops don't call them in the first place. But also, did Chuck Berry have a brother?
No.
Or is this just like a complete random...
No, it's just a great joke. It's a great stupid joke. I mean, maybe he did have a brother, but I guess it's not Marvin Berry.
Yeah. But what's funny about it is they actually credit Marvin Berry and whatever the band's name in the credits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the music credits at the end.
That's funny.
Like performed by Marvin Berry and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, that's fun. So that's cool. I like that.
I also like that we're supposed to buy that Michael J. Fox is singing Johnny Be Good.
It sounds so bad. It looks so bad.
Like it's so poorly dubbed, and like the guy's obviously not like Michael J. Fox in any way, shape, or form vocally. Like,
yeah, it just doesn't match. But what I did find out is all the scenes where he's playing the guitar is actually Michael J. Fox.
Oh, good.
He worked with a choreographer and actually like worked with what's the name of the musician? He actually was one of the guys in the in his band at the beginning. He's like oh my god, I really should look it up.
Sammy Hagar.
It wasn't Sammy Hagar. But like,
But Back to the Future 2 opens with Sammy Hagar.
It does.
55.
Oh my god, who was it? I there's literally no way for me to, like, there is a way for me to find, but I just don't know what to actually look up if I look it up. But yeah, he worked with this guy who's a musician who taught him like how to how to play it and everything. He learned how to play it so that they wouldn't have to have like a double.
Yeah.
Because that would make that scene 10 times harder.
Because you need to clearly see that it's Marty McFly on that stage, especially when he's looking over at George and Lorraine, right?
Yes, exactly. So he actually learned how to play all these things.
That's cool.
And whatever for that scene. But yeah, the vocal, otherwise, no. Yeah. No. As soon as he starts singing, I'm like, no, nobody, what? Who picked this person
I think it was just the original recording.
Mm-hmm. Was it?
It sounded like it.
No, I don't think it was. But if it was, oh my god.
Yeah.
Seriously. Come on, guys. But I thought that was interesting that he actually like went out there and learned how to do things.
Yeah, I mean, I've always respected Michael J. Fox. I think he's a very hardworking actor. Mm-hmm. Like, and he's always good in everything. Like, even as Alex P. Keaton in Family Ties, like, oh man, what a character that hasn't aged well in terms of what people look at as like a heroic male lead.
Yeah,
a capitalistic, like, aspiring rich person.
Speaking about that, like, one thing I learned about is that he actually made the first movie while filming for Family Ties at the same time. And he would be on set all day doing Family Ties, be in a car for like 2 hours, film Back to the Future, and be back on set the next morning.
Woof.
And I was like, how did he even manage to be awake?
Cocaine.
Jesus.
Actually, there's an episode of Family Ties where Alex tries speed to try and, you know, do more homework than he possibly could and study more. And it's like, only in the fucking 80s would, like, you have a character who is doing drugs so that he can be better at school.
Didn't they do that in Saved by the Bell as well?
They did, and then they did that, and then they did it in Fresh Prince as well.
Oh my god, yes they did!
It was a twist on it because they thought Carlton was doing speed, but but he was holding something for a friend of Will's, and like there was just like a snafu. But it was always the doing speed in school. Cool.
Yeah, they were just like, no, I'm gonna do better in school. Let's get some drugs.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it really that much different than getting your kid hopped up on like Adderall and stuff so they can, you know?
People recreationally do Adderall, and it's like it's just a type of like. Stimulant.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Ritalin too, and all that shit, right? Like, there's no difference. Just a matter of who's controlling the dosage, I guess.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? Well, that's really just the difference between an illegal drug and a drug that a doctor gives you.
Yeah.
I mean, heroin used to be prescribed by medical professionals.
And so did cocaine.
Yeah, exactly.
Manufactured by Bayer.
Yeah. They created it. And now we're on Tylenol, so we'll see where Tylenol happens.
Well, fentanyl is the next thing that was created to be a replacement for heroin. Thought it'd be less addictive, but it was like more powerful.
Yeah,
it's less addictive, but it's more powerful.
Is it fentanyl or is it Oh, my brain. Never mind. My brain is failing me.
The point is, there's always a very special episode of your favorite sitcom that addresses the drug use issue.
It's not just sitcom; it was cartoons and everything. Well, because they had the
Reagan. It was Reagan's thing. Is you had to have PSAs.
Yeah. Well, wasn't that a Nancy Reagan?
Nancy Reagan.
Yeah. Because she was all like the say no to drugs, and she's the one who got him to do the whole war on drugs thing, and so all the kids needed to know about the stuff, and that was it. Yeah. So ruined our society by making it better.
Well, I mean, the war on drugs has killed more people than it saved, right?
That is very true.
That's and incarcerated more people than you should have ever been incarcerated.
Well, one of the things that that has come up out of this whole fentanyl and opioid epidemic that's happening right now is the fact that, like, originally war on drugs, cocaine, heroin that was like pumped into society and stuff, or even painkillers and things. Those people were automatically branded, overdosed or not, branded as criminals. They were put in jail, they were tried, whatever. With this epidemic, it's, oh no, they are sick people, they need help, we'll just get them over here, we'll do this. They're actually helping people. But the problem is that there's still a heroin issue and all that kind of stuff. But they'll find a heroin addict, still put them in jail.
Yeah.
But they'll find a fentanyl addict or an opioid addict and still put them in a hospital and get them care.
The solution, as Portugal has recently proven in the past few years, the solution is to completely decriminalize all drugs and make health awareness programs and addiction relief and response programs available. Because, like, Portugal's crime rate dropped significantly, obviously,
Course, yeah.
and their overdose rate also dropped, and their incidence response rate increased because people like to do taboo things, and also if you're buying, if the drug's illegal to buy, you don't know what it's been cut with, and that's a lot of the time. A lot of the overdoses happen because it's been mixed in with extra fentanyl, or it's been cut with something. If it's decriminalized, then you can get a more trusting source, right? It's like safe injection sites in BC. They make sure that people don't use a needle that might have been compromised, right? Yeah. They make sure that if they're gonna do it, at least they do it safely.
Yeah, it's like the parents who are just like, if you're gonna drink at home.
Yeah, be responsible.
Be responsible
and do it safely. And I think that's at the end of the day. You can't. It's very difficult to police people in terms, like, if someone is hell bent on going and doing cocaine, doesn't matter if it's illegal to do or not. They're gonna go do it.
Yes.
So might as well make it safer to do.
Yeah.
And then, then we have programs put in place to deal with the repercussions and ramifications. I think that's the effect. The long-lasting effects of Nancy Reagan's war on drugs has led to the idea that we're going to criminalize people who need help rather than help people who need help.
Exactly. Yeah. But the problem is now, though, even though they're starting to realize that frame of thinking, help the people who need help instead of making them criminals, is the fact that the people who were trapped and criminalized in the time before that are still in jail. Yeah. They're not getting released. They're not getting put on parole or anything, but they're still paying for something that is pretty insignificant. Like a lot of them.
Well, and everyone's paying because they're paying for it with their lives. And governments and taxpayers are paying for it with their dollars because they shouldn't be incarcerated in the first place. Yeah. And it's just a waste of money, and it's which could be better put onto health centers at a much lower cost, right?
Yes.
Like it's all just. I mean, a lot of it goes back to institutionalized racism, and a lot of it goes back to just the privatization of the prison complexes, and like the need to turn jail into a profit-generating industry.
Also, fear-mongering as well.
And fear-mongering.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear-mongering in all of it.
All I'm saying is, where was Nancy Reagan's Max Headroom head in the 80s cafe?
Nobody wanted that.
No.
What did we have? Michael Jackson, Ronald Reagan, and... Who's the other one? There was 3 of them, wasn't there?
Yes, Michael Jackson, Ronnie, and...
Did you not remember the other one?
I just watched it last night. So, we're getting old, so...
We're old, I tell you, we're old.
It gets to the point where sometimes the brain don't work so good,
sorry. I this is a comment that I should have said way a long time ago when we were talking about the first movie. But... one of the things in the parking lot when Doc is first getting into the DeLorean before the Libyans show up is he's like, oh, I can, witness the Declaration of Independence or the birth of Christ. And I was just like, I understand. It's the same concept of any time machine. It goes through time, not space. Yeah. So if you say Declaration of Independence, you'll still be in California.
But you still have to drive. You could drive. You could drive to see the Declaration of Independence in Delaware.
Yeah, so you're gonna drive through
18 hours through wilderness, undeveloped land.
Oh yeah, okay. In a DeLorean.
No. What you do is you drive there first, then hit 88 miles per hour, and then go back in time.
So how's he gonna get to the Middle East?
So he
ships the DeLorean there.
Yeah, so he puts the DeLorean on a freighter. Freighter travels to probably Jordan. Jordan would be the closest port. He gets off at Jordan and drives to Nazareth. Okay. Not a terrible drive, like 3-4 hours from Jordan. That's probably a lie. It's probably like 8 or 10. Anyway, drives significant amount if he's on this significant boat ride. Okay. Then finds a place to get the car to 88 miles per hour and goes back in time to witness the birth of Christ. It's all sensible.
It's all very sensible, indeed.
Or he travels to the future where they have ways of upgrading his DeLorean to fly, upgrades the DeLorean to fly, and then he can go witness the birth of Christ.
That is true. That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like, he doesn't really address the fact that it, like, can't go through space as well as time.
Yeah. Well, like, one thing I find, like, funny about it is that I know technically it's accidental that the only thing they do is focus on the McFly family and fix their issues.
Yeah.
Yes. Which I think is kind of a waste of use of a time machine, personally. A lot of people say they're like, I'd go back in time and kill Hitler. Well, that doesn't solve any problems, really. No. I mean, I think a better route would be, like, be the guy who accepts Hitler into art school. Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, the problem is the anti-Jewish sentiment wasn't solely Adolf Hitler in Germany at the time.
Yes.
Anti-Semitism was widespread in Europe. Because it was a belief, it was a conspiratorial belief against a group of people that has been forever marginalized, right? And it's easy to blame Boogeyman for your society's problems. And Hitler just capitalized on that.
Yes,
I mean, he very much believed it as well, and that's part of the huge problem. But he, like, if not him, there might have been another, like, the ground was swelling and the waters were bubbling for another Adolf Hitler. That probably would have been, like, chances are, statistics would probably show that he's probably, the chances of them being as horrible is probably lower. But yeah, if you'd have to go back and diffuse that society's problems, or go back to the First World War and don't impose so many horrible economic sanctions on Germany, right? Like, it's butterfly effects all around. You can't really, you wouldn't be able to stop what happened there. You'd probably be able to just modify it, you know?
But even, like, doing something as crazy as going back and killing Hitler, I mean, like, after the war happened and everything, yes, it was a catastrophe and all that kind of stuff, but world economics and world stature of countries and all that kind of stuff changed. So imagine, you know, who would be the superpower now, or how would a technology have, like, because technology moved quite quickly because of war.
Well, yeah, if you go back and kill baby Hitler.
No, he doesn't have to be baby.
Well, anyhow, like, you go back and kill Hitler before he becomes chancellor, and then creates the Third Reich. So you somewhere between art school and whatever. If you kill youthful Hitler, well then Japan never enters the war. Yes. Japan is never thus bombed. So there's life savings there on one side. On the other hand, Japan might have continued its occupation of China and would have retained being an imperialist society first, as opposed to what happened post-war was the atrocity was at least tiny partially offset by the fact that their economy boomed and they basically rapidly became the center of all production and innovation for the next 40, 50 years, right? Like, Japan's economy was as a result of what happened when they had to rebuilding themselves for so the world would be a completely different looking place if we did that, because would we even have the boom of the semiconductor boom of the 1960s and microchips as we think of them if war had been averted, because we invested so much money into war tech, and that war tech is what fueled all our computation and computing chips,
but also like aviation, aeronautics, like all that kind of aeronautics and aviation are the same thing.
Yes.
Sorry. But like even like vehicles, you know, the space race that came out of all of it, like the Cold War that developed out of all of that.
We would be, I think we would be behind technologically by a substantial amount, or it would look very different. We might be like the same rate, but it might have taken a completely different form. Maybe
like a different focus.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we would have a Mr. Fusion instead of
maybe it was
an
power
iPhone.
Energy. Like, you know, if the nuclear bomb had never been produced, we wouldn't have to worry so much about because nuclear power was still a thing. But you know, we had reactors before we had
the
atomic bombs. So maybe people wouldn't have vilified nuclear technology, nuclear energy as much as it has been vilified. Yeah. And we might be, living with our fusion reactors now. Yeah,
and but the thing is, within that time period, we probably would have developed a better way to dispose of nuclear waste instead of just burying it for a long time. You know, found a way to reuse it or something like that.
The point is, nobody has the correct answer with what they do with a time machine because we have no idea what would happen.
Yeah, exactly. That is very true.
And like, does the universe keep on existing? Does it splinter off into a secondary universe? Can we hop between the universes?
Well, I mean, there's a theory that time travel already exists, and we have many universes, so
Yeah.
there's no real way for us to know definitively.
Yeah, because there's the people who denounce time travel once by saying, well, if time travel existed, we would have already met a time traveler, because...
But you may already have, and you just don't know.
Right. Or the alternative is that the reality that we're in continues unaffected, but they've created a splinter universe, a splinter reality where that has been changed, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you know, science and theories and such.
Theories that are beyond our, like, 3D spatial understanding are always great, because, like,
Mm-hmm.
our brains are not built to think beyond, like, this table right here,
Yeah.
this beer can.
But, and it's also hard for you to prove or really comprehend any of it, no matter how smart you are. Like, I know there's, like, genius brains who can comprehend it, but you can't relay that information to other people easily.
And I mean, at the end of the day, it's always speculation no matter what, right? Because how do I know until I travel through the time, I have no idea how it actually works.
Exactly.
I can speculate. I can make all the inferences based on the knowledge we have, but because it's not rooted in science, like, how would you travel back in time? Honestly, the only like effective time travel really is flying through space.
Yeah, you have to slingshot around the sun, remember?
Yeah.
What's that?
Just spin the Earth.
Backwards?
Yeah. Christopher Reeve had it.
He knew how to do it.
Everyone would have died.
Well, yeah, because the Earth at one point in time stopped moving and then started going the other way.
Yeah.
So they would have literally
just
flew off, the planet. Massive earthquakes all of a sudden. It would just blow up. It'd be over. But he's Superman, so...
That's true.
Yeah.
It's all because of Mr. Luthor.
Yeah. Anything else?
Can't really think of much else. I mean, like... I think the only thing I addressed is the West stuff. Just felt really, like, hammy.
Yes. Very excessively hammy.
It's very much like an episode of, like, Tombstone, but on crack. You know, like, it's really...
Yeah.
Yeah, like Tombstone with just too much comedy and goofiness.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I have a soft spot for it because, like, there was this weird Western revival obsession for kids media at the time. Like, remember Fievel Goes West as well? Yes. Like, that was that like 1990 period of let's do a kids spin on the Wild West, because for a long time, Westerns were adult films, right? Like,
yes.
Lee Marvin, right? Like, Clint Eastwood, obviously later on, but then with Howdy Doody and like that line, you started getting
that's true.
kids westerns, and I mean, Howdy Doody ties it all back to 1955.
Yeah, the Howdy Doody episode that shows up. Yeah, I think like this is a problem that happens with a lot of like sequels and all that kind of stuff. There's always one of them in there that's just you're just like, you guys gave up or something, and I don't think they gave up. I just think they didn't really have a good grasp on what that third movie really was supposed to be.
Well, it goes by really quickly too. Like, it's too much to pack into the 2 hours that it runs. But how do you end Back to the Future? Like, they did a good enough job with, like, Doc is now a time traveling steampunk Ren Fair aficionado.
Yes. And Marty has his truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Biff does not rule Hill Valley.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you really need. That's all you really need.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad enough to ruin the series, which is great. But there has to be one that's not as good as the others.
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
I agree.
Yeah.
So my advice to you, dear listeners, is to put on your best pair of Calvins, grab yourself lacing shoes, pour yourself a glass of sarsaparilla, and watch all 3 like I did last night.
Sounds like a good time. Sounds like a good time. Well, thank you so very much for being here and having this little discussion with me. I guess we'll probably have to have you back at some point in time and talk about some of your other favorite movies.
If you want to talk about the Rocky films, I am down. I know those films encyclopedically.
I'm making a face at you because I don't own them and I don't like them.
The first Rocky film is a treasure.
I mean, I understand why people like them. They are just... I know.
They created the genre of inspirational sports movie.
Did they though?
Sure did. Rocky won its Academy Award for Best Motion Picture, Best Direction, and Best Screenplay.
Yeah.
For creating that inspirational sports genre.
But didn't they have that one about like the runner? Wasn't that out before that one?
Rocky was 1970.
Well, yeah, that one was like 1983 or
yeah,
something.
77, 78.
Yeah, I don't know. But I must admit, I have not watched it in a very long time. And B, I didn't watch Rocky Balboa or the Creed movies.
Okay, Balboa is great. Sorry, Balboa is very good. Creed 1 is phenomenal. Because Ryan Coogler's a goddamn genius.
Yeah.
Fruitvale Station is
He's
amazing,
great.
and Black Panther is amazing. And like his career went from student at UCLA, film, independent movie, Fruitvale Station. Stallone saw Fruitvale Station, went, I want him to direct my movie about Adonis Creed, and I want him to be the creative source. So suddenly he goes from indie film to like big, like not a blockbuster, but a big film.
Yes.
And then the guys at Marvel see Creed and are like, Black Panther. Now here's $1 billion film. Like, what a career.
Yeah, that is trajectory.
And he's earned it. He's very good. And so Creed is it's a wonderful love letter to the good parts of. There's a lot of trash in the Rocky franchise, so don't get me wrong. But it's an homage love letter to the good parts of it, plus a whole new like generation. Still haven't seen Creed 2, which is a shame, but I'm on it.
Yeah. People keep saying it's of course not as good as the other Creed movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, if all the actors are there, there's a chance that it's actually at least.
And Michael B. Jordan is a treasure too.
Yeah,
like
he's fantastic. Like I didn't realize how many things I'd seen him in until recently.
Yeah.
Of course, as soon as the name gets big, then you start spotting them in different places. And then I'm like,
damn it, Mahershala
like
Ali is like the hardest working man in Hollywood. I was just watching. I saw Battle Angel Alita.
Hated it.
Really, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I thought it was the best anime adaptation to date. Which might be.
But does that make it good?
I really love the '90s cartoon, which it pulls like
Mostly.
very, very, very heavily from.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a treat because it was something that I really liked, redone very well. Like it's a well executed film, but it's schlocky.
I didn't think it was well executed anyway.
Oh, really?
Like I found none of the characters seemed to have any chemistry with each other. The writing was kind of there was a lot of disjointed parts to it. I will admit this, I had never seen the anime, right? And I never read the manga either. So I was going in blind to it. I was like, and I actually didn't want to see it based on the trailers. I was just like, oh, this looks horrible. But my friend dragged me to see it, and then I was like, you know what? Sometimes, my mind could be changed. Yep. That's fine. And I sat there and I watched it, and I was like, I hate every minute of this.
I really enjoyed it, but I also like movies that are just unabashed action scenes bound together too.
But that's one of my biggest problems with it. I thought the action scenes they weren't very good.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like I found them to be slightly boring, kind of lazy, and like meh.
I put it on par with like the second Matrix film, where it's not a good movie, but it's a lot of fun. Like I find it fun to watch.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like
I get that.
It's a spectacle, and there's a lot to enjoy from the second Matrix film. But like you have to check your brain out at
at the door. Yeah.
And there's nothing intelligent about Battle Angel Alita. But I brought it up, and I can't remember why I brought it. Oh yeah, because Mahershala Ali's everywhere.
Yes.
I was watching like
everything now.
Like, how are you in this? Didn't you just win an Academy Award? Like, how are you in 12 movies this year?
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's his like work ethic is catching up, right?
Yeah.
But my biggest problem with when that happens is you get 5 years of them in every single thing, and then you're just like, can you just relax for a minute?
Yep.
Just go over there. And don't get me wrong, I think he's fantastic. Like I just watched this season of True Detective with him as well, which he did a phenomenal job, especially like translating himself in like 3 different ages, and getting that old man feel down right, and like the jaded cop down right, and then like the young guy who's like, I'm gonna do my job. Like he has the time periods so well done and brought forward, and he's a great actor. I just think
you just don't want Ben Affleck syndrome to kick in, or Damon syndrome,
or something like that.
They're like you see them everywhere, and so you stop caring.
Mm-hmm. Or like you see them so much everywhere that you're just like, oh, he's just playing the same guy all the time. Like, I don't need this. you know, because you get worn out, you get worked out. But at the same time, some of these movies may have been shot 3-4 years ago. They're just coming out now, and you know they just happen to be at the same time, and they're capitalizing on the fact that he just won an Oscar.
Yep.
So.
Very true.
Yeah, and that's also the thing that blew my mind about Alita is how many Oscar winners were in this movie, and it still came across as like, you guys aren't doing anything.
I think Christoph Waltz did a great job.
He didn't do anything.
He's just an endearing old man.
He wasn't though. I was just like, you seem bored. That's what I got out of it.
Christoph Waltz, he was overused for a little bit for a moment there, and then like I think he or his agent made a smart decision to pull back from doing too many things. Because like right after Inglourious Bastards, like he was in everything for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, but he also always played sort of like the bad guy. Yeah, you know, like he always played that guy who A, talked a bit too much, and B, you don't want to be trapped in a room with him. Yeah. Well,
he's got a little bit of a creepy air to him.
Yeah. But I've seen him in like interviews and things, and he just seems very nice.
He's very nice. He speaks like 5 languages. He's a polyglot, and he's just seems like a very genuine human being who has gotten a really accelerated, like a career accelerant late in life. Because, you know, he was doing a lot of, I think he was doing Swiss films and German films and stuff like that. And Tarantino found him somehow, or he auditioned somehow, and just like it worked out well for him, and now he's got a Hollywood career.
Yeah. Good for him.
Well, I think same thing going back to Ali. I think he's in his like 40s, I believe now. Yeah. So he's been hustling for years, and it's just right.
Well, I mean, you think about when did he do The Wire? That was in the 90s,
that was,
right?
2000s, but still.
Was that into 2000?
Yeah, I think it was 2001, 2000.
I think that was. You know what? I'll admit this, and people are going to start screaming when they hear this in their ear. I've never watched The Wire.
It's very good.
And at this point in time, I still haven't watched it purely out of spite.
Oh, spite.
And I'm not saying I will never watch it. Just stop telling me to look at it.
2002 to 2008.
Yeah, just stop telling me to look at it, and I'll get around to having a look at it. Yes, that's it. That's all I'm going to say.
It's a thrilling indictment of Baltimore policing.
Okay, yeah, all right. Well, actually, you just told me more about the show than I ever heard you in one sentence. People are like, but it's so good. Like, there's this guy, there's Omar, and they do this thing, and like, oh, they sit in that car. Did you see that one episode? Oh,
people are really bad at summarizing things.
I'm like, that doesn't tell me anything. Yeah. But no, I'm not going to watch it because you're the 12th person to say I should watch it today. Yeah. Go away. I'm a horrible person.
Hey, it's fine. We're all horrible people deep down.
Deep down. Well, again, thank you for coming and doing Off My Shelf.
Anytime.
Yeah, we'll probably have you back for something else fun besides Rocky, unfortunately.
Let's see what's else on the shelf over there.
There's a lot of things on the shelf, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it for this episode of Off My Shelf. I'll actually be taking a little break and returning with new episodes on April 29th, 2019, where we'll be doing several episodes about Batman, starting with the animated series, going into the Tim Burton movies, then the Joel Schumacher, and then the Nolan movies. So that's going to be fun.
Holy Batman fest, Batman.
I know. I didn't realize how much Batman stuff I had, and then I was just like, we have to do an epic thing about this. This is amazing. What was that again?
I can't remember the cut. It's like, right, fall out, boy.
Jiminy Jillikers.
I'm fired, aren't I?
Well, until then, you can still follow along on Twitter and Instagram at ohmyshelf, or you can email me at ohmyshelf@gmail.com. Hope you'll be here to listen.